morning. My name is Daniela Angelina Jelinčić, and I am representing IRMO, Institute for Development and International Relations. I would like to welcome you all to this workshop we are organizing within the Keep On project. Keep On project is the Interreg Europe project, which focuses on sustainability and durability of cultural heritage and effective public policies which are to ensure sustainability and durability of cultural heritage. I have to say that I'm really thrilled that so many people expressed their interest for this workshop we are organizing. Obviously, we all have problems in ensuring sustainability of cultural heritage, so it is a rather interesting and challenging topic. Within Interreg Europe project, we dealt with it developing our own methodology, and we would like to present it today, not in terms of methodology, but some of the cases will be presented. And as you know, we are focusing within the workshop on financing, management or governance models in cultural heritage. So for most countries, financing is the top challenge, but within the project, we have detected a number of other challenges, which are also to be discussed, but this time we are focusing on these ones. I have to say that over 100 people expressed their interest in joining this workshop. Most of them who registered are from Spain, but also from Greece, Croatia, Poland, Romania, Italy. We have people also interested from Singapore and United States. I'm not sure if they joined us today because of the time difference, but still, this is not only the European Union issue, it's a global issue. I am aware that due to the COVID-19 reasons and the epidemiologic situation, a lot of people are involved in other activities. So we have today the mayor of a city in Italy who is overwhelmed with the issues to deal concerning the COVID-19, but he will still join us because cultural heritage issue also suffers from the COVID-19 consequences. So once again, I would like to welcome you all. We will have a moderator here today that will be Mrs. Malgorzata Steckiewicz. She is, I would say, the brain of the whole project, because she is the author of one of the authors, but the main responsible for the application form by which we won this project on the Interreg Europe contest. She will be guiding you and your questions at the end. There is some time dedicated for discussion. We will first have presentations, so there is no direct response after the presentation, no room for asking questions, but throughout the whole workshop, you are free to use the chat and ask your questions. So Mrs. Steckiewicz will collect your questions and then guide you and the presenters in the discussion when we have the reserved time for the discussion at the end of the agenda. Of course, during the discussion, you may also participate directly and ask questions, well, if not in person, but at least through this virtual platform. So I would also like all the speakers to keep the time, because we have 15 minutes presentations. So it is necessary to keep the times that I mean, it's not easy to sit in front of the computer all the time. And as you know, this will last more than 3 hours. So it's necessary to keep the time. The only presentation which will be dedicated a little bit more time is the Spanish presentation, because of the translation. It will be in Spanish, but the translation will be provided. All other presentations will be in English. So, as to start, according to our agenda, we first have the presentation of the practical guidebook, which we produced within the Keep On project. So just to inform you how we approached the question of sustainability and durability. Can you see my presentation? Anyone?
Yes, yes, it's perfectly visible.
Thank you very much. Okay. So in order to be able to come up with some advice and some methodologies to ensure cultural heritage sustainability and durability, we tried to detect some challenges first, and we produced a practical guide, which the cover of which you can see on this slide. So where did we start from? We first started from the analysis of problems and challenges, and we detected some generic topics on challenges to sustainability, alongside most common challenges in a number of countries. First of all, I would like to say that ensuring cultural heritage sustainability is an extremely complex issue, because it normally in the scientific literature is divided in economic, environmental, social, and cultural challenges. There are also political challenges which are associated to it. So in order to detect a good practice, it was really difficult to say this is 100% a good practice, because it might be effective in economic challenges, in meeting the economic challenges, but on the other side, it might not meet the environmental challenges. So what we try to do is to divide the challenges, and then to detect those problems and those cases which meet a specific challenge. Whereas as cultural heritage managers, you will have to deal with all the issues. So the document is first targeted to local and regional authorities and decision makers in the partnership countries, but not only, it can be used globally. And as we are trying to improve public policies to ensure cultural heritage sustainability, this is why we opted for this target group. What did we want to accomplish? To raise awareness of heritage sustainability issues and to offer them a deeper understanding of this topic. So how we approach the structure of the guide, we first detected the most common challenges. I have to say that within the partnership, we did detect some of the challenges, but these challenges not necessarily deal with all the challenges detected in the cultural heritage sustainability topic. So we widened the scope, and even though we didn't have the chance to detect all of the challenges in the partnership cases, we did it globally. Then we offered some responses and solutions together with practical examples from within the partnership, but also other countries in the world. And then we approached different aspects of sustainability and possibly saw the possibility to transfer the cases also to other contexts. Transferability is a very tricky issue because it doesn't work always in all the context, but wherever we could, we approach those cases which in our expert opinion could be transferred also to other countries and other territories. So the content of the guide first defines sustainability and durability in cultural heritage. explains what we considered a good practice in cultural heritage, and then offers some practical how-tos for cultural heritage durability and sustainability. Then focusing on the transferability, so does it work for everyone? And finally, as much as it was really difficult to narrow down the tips to ensure sustainability of cultural heritage only in 10 tips, we tried to put those steps which seemed the most important. Of course, they are much wider, but as this is to be, the guide is to be of practical nature, these tips are probably the most important one. So solutions for several challenges are depicted in at least one practical example. It links with the most complex or more direct challenges. And then we give some tips and recommendations from each case in the text boxes, and we hope you can be inspired from it. So just to present a few cases from the partnership, we have a speaker who is the director of the CHECINY Royal Castle in Poland. This is a case which represented an economic challenge because they didn't have enough funds. What they did, it's a classical example of the use of available funds. So excuse me if other people can mute their microphones so that we don't have too many people talking at the same time. Thank you. So in the Polish example, they used the available EU funds for the revitalization of the cultural asset and focused on the improvement and operation of the castle. I will not lose time because we have, as I said, the director who will explain more. The monastery of Santo Estevo is the example from Ourense, Spain, a very good example, also represented their economic challenge, where a monastery has been turned into a hotel, therefore as a tourism facility. So what a very good example for, they have a very specific management model which they use. But they managed to safeguard cultural heritage building through its repurposing. Another example from Pageo, from Greece, our partner from Greece. They had the socio-cultural challenge in terms of public perception of cultural heritage, and they decided to hold a regular conference on Pageo local history involving local community and youth. It's a very successful conference which has been going on for years now. And practically the whole community is engaged in it and is continually educated and trained on cultural heritage so that public perception rises about it. An excellent example from the Netherlands, from Hertogensbosch, Bulwark St. John's Visitor Center. So on one hand, we have a fortress, a stronghold, which is turned to a visitor center, so the welcoming arms of the city. The management challenge was approached very well, in my own opinion, under ensuring long-term sustainability and durability of the project. So there was a need for restoration, which turned into a completely new redevelopment plan. It also took into account adaptation to climate challenges. It impacted local community life and, of course, ensured safeguarding of the heritage. Unique financial model as a long-term rent was also provided. So just to give you an example, a visual example of what it looks like, where it turned into a visitor center and the outside of the building. From Italy, we have an excellent example of ASTI Museum Foundation. So the challenge was also in the management. where we had 5 different cultural institutions under one roof. So the municipality is the owner of these 5 buildings. They approached a bank, so a private partner, and founded the ASTI Museum Foundation, which is now running all the 5 museums. In Portugal, an excellent example of eco-museum, museum of FLAX, where a management challenge, which was especially focusing on human resources management, involved participatory management model, approaching local community who are direct stakeholders, direct actors engaged in the operation and exhibition of the museum. At the end, when we analyzed the challenges and threats and gave some tips and recommendations and analyzed also the potential of their transferability, we offered 10 tips for ensuring sustainability. For you to know, I hope it will be useful for you. This is the link where you can download the practical guide. It is in English, but it is also offered in Portuguese, and summaries, if not still soon, summaries in other partnership languages will be offered. So this is from my side to give you the introduction for this workshop we are organizing. And now over to you, Malgorzata, so that you can announce another speaker.
Good morning to all of you. The next speaker is from Spain. This is Antonio Piñeiro, from the responsible for culture in Celanova Council, and the title of the presentation is From Cultural Heritage to Cultural Industry, Sustainability Perspective. You should unmute yourself in order in your office, okay?
Buenos días.
Thank you.
Good morning. Estamos esperando para poder conectar la pantalla, que se pueda ver la pantalla.
Yes, good morning. I will translate Antonio Piñeiro. We have a technological problem. Only a few minutes, please. On the way, we can show you the presentation he has prepared.
Se nos escapó el informático.
Yes, you should be able to see the share screen button.
Yeah, but
Yeah, ¿dónde está? Where is?
At the bottom of your screen.
No, nos dejó a medias. Sin la presentación.
no. Yeah.
Yes, now it is working.
Working. Yeah.
Con lo de presentación. Con presentación.
Yeah. Que no me
No, con primera pantalla, porque se usa.
presentación. Presentación completa.
Porque se desea para que veis a ver.
Eso está, pero ahora sabes, se ve así, ¿no? Se ve así, así, ¿cómo se ve? Sí. Vale. Sí. Sí.
Ah, vale. Sí, no me falta que me veis.
Vale, gracias. So sorry for this inconvenience. We can start.
Bueno, buenos días. El encargo que, bueno, antes de nada, darle gracias a Linorde por hacerme partícipe de este proyecto y poder presentar esta reflexión que voy a plantear de forma colectiva.
So Antonio Piñeiro wants to thank Linorde for the participation and having think about him for this presentation. He wants to, the presentation will be about heritage and he wants to present you some ideas.
El objetivo de esta es precisamente hacer una reflexión por contraste, es decir, el contraste existente entre estas dos imágenes que algunos de los que estáis conocéis, por lo menos la de la derecha, y que son, por un lado, lo que lleva el titular de mi presentación. Por un lado, la cultura, la industria cultural frente al patrimonio cultural, que a mi modo de ver le faltan muchos de los criterios de la industria cultural para hacerlo sostenible en el tiempo y que es de lo que va la reflexión.
So the reflection he wants to present is to think in contrast. So the objective of the presentation is to think in contrast in heritage and industry. The two images, the two pictures that we can see here are one of a local manufacturer, and then the other one is a spring in the center of our city of Ourense, and he wants to try to think with you how we can approach the line of the industry sustainability and the cultural and make the cultural heritage sustainable also.
El título es el patrimonio cultural, precisamente, que a mi modo de ver lo tenemos como si fuese una gran hidroeléctrica a la que no tenemos puestas las turbinas para que genere economía.
The title is Cultural Heritage, a dam without turbines, because he thinks that our cultural heritage is something similar. It is like a dam without turbines.
Aquí tenemos dos ejemplos. Uno es, como decía, el turismo cultural representado por uno de los símbolos culturales, que es también natural por el agua, que son las burgas, la fuente de las burgas en Ourense, y por otro lado una empresa de tecnología aeronáutica que se llama COASA, que está en el polígono, en la Tecnópolis, en el polígono industrial de Ourense.
On the right, the picture are the thermal springs of Ourense in the center, that is a cultural natural heritage we have, and on the left, the aeronautic industry that is called COASA, and that is in the proximity of the city.
La pregunta de fondo, de calado, es, por lo tanto, ¿por qué la industria en general es económicamente sostenible y el patrimonio cultural no? Sí.
The question is, why is industry, the economy of the industry sustainable, but why does not the cultural heritage be sustainable?
Supongo que cada uno tiene su propia contestación. La mía, después de muchos años trabajando en un ayuntamiento pequeño con mucho patrimonio cultural, es precisamente esto. Porque hasta ahora no hemos sido capaces de gestionar con patrones industriales el patrimonio cultural.
So the question, and what he's showing here is, why does the cultural heritage not be able to manage and to make sustainable all its activity, like does also like do the industry.
Aquí tenemos por un lado a la izquierda 4 ejemplos de patrimonio cultural. Un yacimiento arqueológico que se llama Castromao, que es del ayuntamiento del que yo procedo. Un órgano antiguo, probablemente el órgano histórico más antiguo que todavía funciona en Galicia, Xilpeira de Ambía. Un monasterio al que después de muchos debates durante muchos años todavía no se le dio una solución, aunque sí ya se hizo bastante inversión, que es el monasterio de Melón, lo pongo como ejemplo, hay otros más. Y una aldea rural que en los últimos años se lleva restaurado bastante y se está incorporando al turismo cultural gracias a un patrimonio cultural generoso, como es Pazos de Arenteiro.
On the left, you can see 4 pictures. The first one on the left over is Castromao. It is an archaeological site from the municipality from where lives Antonio. The second picture is the organ of Xilpeira de Ambía. It is the oldest local historical instrument, probably, that is still used in our community. Then we have also the monastery of Melon. The monastery of Melon is a local heritage. It has been a very important monastery in the past, but that still has not a definitive resolution. And then finally, the last picture is Pazos de Arenteiro. Pazos de Arenteiro is a small village that has been restored, also here very near from the city of Portugal in our province.
Es el patrimonio cultural y por otro lado confrontamos con 4 ejemplos industriales que hay en la provincia de Ourense, de la industria agroalimentaria representada por Coren, la pizarra en Valdeorras, en la comarca de Valdeorras, la Tecnópole, que es un amplio nido de empresas de tecnología avanzada. Coasa está ahí, en uno de estos edificios, y fundamentalmente la moda, de la que Ourense también es un ejemplo internacional. Es decir, ahí tenemos el patrimonio industrial.
On one side, we can see the cultural heritage. On the other side, we can see the industrial heritage, local heritage also. Like that is an important manufacturer that sells all over Spain many products from alimentation. Then we have La Pizarra. Pizarra is the material used for the blackboards. It's also a very important industry in our area. Then we can see a picture with people. This is fashion. Okay, Adolfo Domingo is one of the, and its manufacturer is representing the fashion, the local fashion. That is also a very important sector in our area. And then finally, Technopol, that is an area of research, investments, and trying to improve the technology. This is also very important, and is developing, is an engine of the local development.
¿Por qué no somos capaces de equiparar una parte con la otra? Voy a poner ahora en general varios ejemplos del resto de España rápidamente para que se vea que sí que es posible. El cómo quedará para una siguiente oportunidad, charla en la que podamos coincidir.
Antonio wants to show you now some examples in Spain to show that it is possible to manage the local heritage as on the same way as the industrial heritage.
Les voy a poner, por ejemplo, esa imagen, que seguro que la mayoría la conocen, que es una imagen aérea de Santiago de Compostela en los años 70, 70 y pico, cuando todavía, se ve ahí la parte de abajo, cuando todavía había permitían el tráfico rodado por la plaza.
The first image is Santiago de Compostela in the 70s. This is the capital of Galicia, very known nowadays all over the world. In this image, what we can see is the cars that still were in that moment, that still could circulate in the center of Ourense in the 70s.
Esto es Bilbao, que es el paradigma de la industrialización en su momento. Esta es una fotografía de los años 80. Aquí tenemos una imagen que fue la primera postal que conocí en su momento de una pequeña población que se llama Santillana del Mar, en Cantabria.
Sorry, Antonio, I am not sure whether you can see the slides that are changing, because I still see the second slide.
No se ve.
No.
No se está viendo la...
No.
I'm still...
No se ve.
No cambió.
No, pues aquí no estamos viendo.
Qué pena. A ver si a lo mejor es...
Está compartiendo,
¿Eh?
En principio está compartiendo.
Se ve la... no se nos va a ver.
Quedó en la positiva 2, se quedó en la segunda diapositiva.
Yes, when we can see 8 images. This patrimonio cultural, patrimonio industrial.
Yes, the first one.
Ahí. A ver ahora.
Let's retry the second.
Cambió ahora.
No.
No.
Try to click on yes.
Ahora sí.
Yes, now it is working, yes.
And now?
No. Qué pena.
¿Se ve ahora o no? Sí,
Uh,
ahora sí. Sí.
Se ve Santiago, sí.
Santiago, Bilbao, sí.
Ajá.
Oh,
Vale.
Okay.
Bueno, pues vamos a ir más rápido, si no se alarga mucho.
Sí, hay que...
Bueno, ahí vemos 6 localidades, 6 ciudades españolas que en su momento estaban así, lógicamente no tenían el patrimonio cultural como elemento generador de economía, ¿no?
These images we can see here are Santiago, Bilbao, Santillana del Mar, Madrid, Málaga, and also the vineyards of La Rioja. What we can see here is the images of that localities or places before the tourism development.
Sí. Bueno, ahora vamos a ver las imágenes. Cambió, sí.
Did it change
Change.
now?
Sí.
Yes.
Pues esto es Santiago de Compostela, bastantes años después, hace 2 años o así, después de la eclosión del Jacobeo.
This is Santiago de Compostela a few years ago, when we, in a moment where we can see that we have a lot of people in the square, so in the moment of the tourism eclosion.
Esto es Bilbao, después de la transformación experimentada a partir de la construcción del Guggenheim, que se ve ahí en pequeñito.
As this is Bilbao, after the construction of the Guggenheim and after the change of development of the city.
Santillana del Mar, después de la promoción turística generalizada, provocada también por no la aparición, sino la explotación turística de las cuevas de Altamira.
Santillana del Mar, with the change to tourism after the discovering and promotion of the cuevas de Altamira, this is the result, an important touristic locality.
Bueno, y abajo pues tenemos el Matadero de Madrid, que es un proyecto cultural que lleva no más de 10 años, que está siendo un referente cultural a nivel internacional. Málaga, pues el ejemplo de la calle Larios, por la evolución estética que tuvo. Y La Rioja, después hablaremos de las viñas en Ourense, con un edificio de Santiago Calatrava que le da un valor añadido, lógicamente, al patrimonio vitivinícola de la comarca, de la provincia. Vamos.
These three images are from Madrid, Malaga, and La Rioja. In Madrid, what we can see is the slaughterhouse that has lived from the first activity to now. The second one was the street of Larios in Malaga, also with important change. And then the last one is La Rioja, the vineyards, with an example of an important construction from Santiago Calatrava that has given to the area another important component.
Es decir, que hay ejemplos clarificadores de que el patrimonio cultural sí que puede ser un elemento dinamizador social y económico de su zona de influencia.
So the conclusion is that we have seen examples of areas that where we can see that the cultural heritage is something dynamic and that can develop economically, socially, and socially the area where it is.
Bueno, vamos a ver lo que pasa en Orense. Estas 5 imágenes son de distintos lugares, distintos elementos patrimoniales de la provincia. Las burgas que vimos antes, Santa Comba de Bande, que es una iglesia visigótica, el monasterio de Oseira y la catedral de Orense, y esta imagen que se superpone es el monasterio de Celanova del ayuntamiento del que yo procedo.
So what happens here locally in Orense? The 5 images we see are the first one, the thermal sources, the thermal waters of Las Burgas, that's the fountain. Then the second one is the monastery of Oseira. Down on the left, we can see the physical church of Santa Comba de Bande, and on the right, the cathedral of Orense. In the center, the monastery of Celanova, where Antonio is from.
La contrapongo con otras 5 imágenes y después explico por qué. Esta es la iglesia de Santiago en Allariz. Esta es una imagen completamente desconocida respecto de lo que conocemos, que es el monasterio de San Esteban de Ribas de Sil. Esto es el castillo de Rivadavia y esto es la plaza que antecede al monasterio San Clodio en Leiro. Y finalmente aquí tenemos la estación, como estaba hace años, de Baños de Molgas.
Antonio wants to contrast with other 5 images of local heritage from the area of Ourense. Over, we can see the church of Allariz. On the right, the castle of Rivadavia. Down on the left, it is the ruins of what was the monastery of San Esteban, Santo Esteban. On the right, we have the area of San Claudio, the local square of San Claudio, that is also a monastery. And then over, we have the train station of Baños de Molgas, that is now a museum.
Bueno, pues esto lo vamos a ver unos años después.
After a few years, this is the result.
Las Burgas, el monasterio de Oseira, Santa Comba de Bande, la catedral de Orense, vista en este caso del interior, y el monasterio de mi pueblo, el monasterio de Celanova.
These are the results. We can see exactly the same heritages a few years after. So the thermal springs of Ourense, the monastery of Oseira, the church of Santa Comba, the cathedral, and then the monastery of Celanova.
Y de la misma forma, las otras 5, tenemos Allariz, la iglesia que vimos antes, San Esteban, con el cambio, la transformación radical que tuvo, el castillo de Rivadavia, del que hablaba, y el interior del monasterio de San Claudio en Leiro, junto con la estación que algunos conocéis de cuando estuvisteis aquí en Orense, de Baños de Molgas.
So that's the new changes. We follow showing you the actual pictures. So Allariz, Rivadavia, the train station of Baños de Molgas, then San Claudio de Leiro, and also the monastery of Santo Esteban de Ribas de Sil.
¿Qué diferencias vimos? Prácticamente ninguna. Aquí lo vemos, hay una mejora en los jardines y poco más, ¿no? Esto es en las burgas, y la diferencia es que, como puedes haber 100 años de diferencia entre estas dos imágenes, es que se llevan surgido y desaparecido 157.000, casi 160.000 metros cúbicos de agua al año a 60 grados, que salen por esos caños y se pierden prácticamente sin sacarle rendimiento.
So what we see here is that the change of the first picture and the second one in Las Burgas, the change is only aesthetic, or so nothing more has been done. The difference between the first one and the second one is that we have lost 157,000 more of meters cubed of water each year at 60 degrees Celsius. So we lose that water and we do nothing without it, with thermal water.
Está en Santa Comba, en los años 20, cuando fue declarado el primer monumento histórico nacional de la provincia de Orense, y es Santa Comba en la actualidad, salvando pequeñas construcciones, tejado y demás, en el fondo está igual.
The second image is the same. It is very similar. Of course, we have had restorations and local archaeological interventions, but nothing more has been done. It is practically on the same way.
Esto es Celanova, que paradójicamente, y me puede reconocerlo públicamente, la imagen de hace casi 100 años es mejor que la actual, porque no había coches en aquel momento. Sin embargo, fue en el año 85 el primer premio Europa Nostra en restauración en Ourense y uno de los primeros de Galicia.
In that third picture, what says Antonio is that probably the monastery of Celanova was in a better way, in a best way in the past, because nowadays we have cars and not in that moment. But it is also an important monument. It has been it has received the prize Europa Nostra in the year 85.
Bueno, y esto es, también fue premio Europa Nostra, Oseira, en distintas imágenes también, con años de diferencia. Aquí se ve bastante derruido y aquí ya se ve bastante actualizado arquitectónicamente.
In that last picture, we see the same. It has also received an award from Europa Nostra in the year 90. The monument now has been restored and then is in a better way.
Los siguientes que pongo, los voy a poner todos juntos para acelerar un poco, son los que vimos antes, pero donde sí la transformación fue más global y la economía, pues en las imágenes de abajo, se ve que sí hubo una transformación que está generando en estos momentos economía. En Nayarit, en Santo Estevo, en Rivadavia y en San Claudio.
In that four examples, what we see is that heritage, that cultural heritage, has promoted an economic increment in the area. This is the difference with the four images before. In Nayarit, in Santo Estevo, with the Parador, in Rivadavia, and in San Claudio, it has developed the local area, economic and social.
Bueno, cada una tiene su propia peculiaridad, perdón, y están explicitadas aquí, ¿no? Pero hay algunos en los que prácticamente no hubo una generación económica ligada al patrimonio, en otros más o menos sí.
What is telling is that we can see the specification and the particularities of each one, but the important is see that some of them have generated an economic activity around, and others did not were not able to do it on the same way.
¿Por qué está pasando, por qué pasó y sigue pasando esto respecto del patrimonio cultural? Yo creo que tomo a Orense como ejemplo, pero podría ser perfectamente, estoy seguro, que podría ser extrapolado a cualquier otro lugar de las dimensiones o de las circunstancias socioeconómicas de Ourense en cualquier lugar de Europa.
So why did that happen? The examples here are in Ourense, but Antonio is sure that if we look all around Europe, we can have exactly the same examples. So areas that have heritage that has been able to develop the area and others that not.
Hay, por un lado, hay un debate interno, es decir, entre las administraciones de quién tiene la obligación de proteger ese patrimonio, quién tiene la obligación de conservarlo y quién tiene la obligación de gestionarlo. Es un debate que todavía no se ha resuelto y yo creo que va a tardar en resolverse.
There is an inner debate, the first in the local administration. So the first thing is who has to conserve, promote, and do the marketing of this heritage, and then also the administration is thinking who has to manage it.
Y hay un debate externo, es decir, respecto, lo estoy haciendo la comparación respecto de la industria, ¿no? En general, de la industria en general. Hay un debate externo, público-privado, es decir, normalmente el patrimonio cultural es patrimonio de carácter público, mayoritariamente.
So the question is, the heritage is mostly public. The character is public. What Antonio is trying to show is how we manage the public heritage and comparing with how is managed the industry.
Hay una gran diferencia a la hora de aplicar los criterios de gestión, lógicamente, entre un bien público y un bien privado. En el privado deciden los gestores, hacen sus planes de inversión, sus estudios de mercado. En el público, sin embargo, todo el mundo se siente con derecho a opinar. Y eso no digo que sea ni bueno ni malo, pero es así, ¿no? Entonces es imposible hacer planificaciones plurianuales, por ejemplo, estudios de viabilidad económica como se debieran hacer, y en muchos casos existe una resistencia incluso vecinal, como voy a demostrar dentro de un rato, a que se generen proyectos de dinamización económica en esos bienes públicos.
In the private area, the managers decide. They decide how they have to do the investments, they do the plans, the market studies, and so on. But in the public sector, this is very different because the local population and everybody that is around has his own criteria and does debate about what happens with the local heritage.
Esa es una de las principales razones por las que yo creo que lastran la gestión del patrimonio cultural.
There is also a resistance of the local inhabitants sometimes in the local heritage, and this is what wants to show you now, Antonio.
Porque inversiones sí que hubo. Voy a poner una serie de titulares de prensa de los últimos 20 años. Nunca son suficientes para el patrimonio cultural, pero sí que las ha habido.
These are press notices where we can see that we have had investments in the area, in the local heritage.
Solo mirando los números, sin leer los titulares, se ven cantidades como 1 millón de euros, 800.000 euros, en distintos, 10 millones de euros, por ejemplo, el proyecto de San Cibrán de Las.
only looking the numbers of that press news, we can see that there has been an investment in the cultural heritage. We can see, for example, 6 million euros. We can recognize also 250,000 euros, 350,000 of inversion, and so on.
Otra cosa es cómo se gestionaron y con qué prioridades. Vuelvo, digamos, a la pantalla anterior.
How has all this money been managed and inverted? This is the question. We can refer to the examples that we have seen a few minutes ago. This is the question: how we invert everything, how we manage all that money reside.
Porque, como decía antes, también la opinión pública tiene criterios respecto de su propio patrimonio, el patrimonio que considera suyo. Aquí hay algunos ejemplos de iniciativas populares en contra de la gestión del patrimonio como estaba previsto hacerlo. Algunas salieron adelante, otras, sin embargo, quedaron en el camino.
The public administration has its criteria for the management of the cultural heritage, but these are some examples also of press news where we can see that the local inhabitants did not agree with the public management, and even have changed, have changed the result.
Bueno, eso lo contrapongo, respecto de la industria, disfrutamos esta siguiente pantalla, lo contrapongo respecto de dos ejemplos que voy a poner de la provincia de Orense de la industria cultural. Es decir, que serían, por ejemplo, el vino, aquí está la comarca de Monterrey y de Valdeorras, o la industria hidroeléctrica, ¿no?
Antonio wants now to show you two examples of cultural heritage and cultural industry. In the first example, we have the wine, so 2 areas of one production. Orense is an area of one production, but it is also an area that has an important industrial heritage next to the reservoirs or hydroelectric dams.
Bueno, respecto del vino, por ejemplo, lógicamente digamos, la madre del cordero, no sé cómo, es la uva, y a partir de ahí, del nacimiento de la uva, se genera una serie de actividades que son, lógicamente, la plantación, los cuidados agrícolas, la investigación y el seguimiento de las cosechas, la creación de la marca, el embotellado y el etiquetado, la promoción y el marketing, productos complementarios y la logística de venta, ¿no? Cada uno de esos pasos aporta un valor añadido a un patrimonio, en el fondo es patrimonio natural, como es la uva.
So the important in the wine industry is of course the grapes. So all this, what is showed here, planting the wines, the agricultural care, investigation and monitoring of crops, the brand creation, bottle labeling, and so on. This adds a value to the grape in each moment of the phase of the development.
Otro ejemplo que tenemos también desde hace muchos años en la provincia, pues es la industria hidroeléctrica. Es decir, que lógicamente la adquisición de esto tiene un componente público también, la adquisición de los terrenos, proyectos técnicos, ingeniería, ejecución de las obras, comercialización de la energía, todo eso genera una serie de valores añadidos y en este caso de inversiones multimillonarias.
The other example is the hydroelectric industry. It has also different phases of development, and in each phase it generates also an important economy in the area.
Bien, pues en resumen, imaginen que los productores del Ribeiro, de las 4 provincias, de las 4 denominaciones de origen del vino de Ourense, después de plantar sus viñas y de cuidarlas para que no sean presa de las enfermedades que tienen el mildio y otros, lo único que consiguiese fuese organizar unas visitas guiadas cuando los racimos comienzan a aparecer y después unas jornadas fotográficas, unos recorridos fotográficos en el otoño para ver la policromía de las hojas. Estaríamos hablando de un fracaso, lógicamente, un fracaso económico. Imaginen, por otra parte, que si después de hacer una inversión multimillonaria, como es la gestión completa de un embalse, de una industria hidroeléctrica, al final para lo único que se hace es para dar unos paseos en barco o para ir a pescar unos cuantos peces en la temporada de pesca.
So in resume, in summary, imagine that in the areas where wine is produced, the vineyards, after having grown the grapes, the vineyards only were used for the photographic tours or guided tours. And imagine also, on the other hand, that the construction of dams is only used for recreational trips in small boats in the area.
Bueno, pues eso es más o menos lo que estamos haciendo con el patrimonio cultural. Es decir, invirtiendo una gran cantidad de dinero, como vimos en alguna pantalla anterior, pero al final no le ponemos la turbina al patrimonio cultural para que genere economía, ¿no?
So that is the resume. What we do is here is having important investments in the cultural heritage, but finally the result is that we are not able to put the turbine in the cultural heritage to generate benefits.
¿Cómo podemos hacer sostenible el patrimonio cultural entonces? Tendremos que utilizar las reglas de la industria cultural, de la industria en general, para gestionar el patrimonio cultural.
So,
Sí.
The conclusion is how can we make sustainable the cultural heritage? Do we use, have we to use the rules of the cultural industry?
Lógicamente lo tendremos que hacer desde la conciencia de que estamos trabajando con un material especialmente sensible, ¿no? Que es el patrimonio público, que procede de un tiempo y que nuestra obligación es garantizar su continuidad, pero yo creo que lo debemos hacer sin temor, es decir, con respeto, pero sin temor a poder aplicar los criterios de la industria en general para que el patrimonio cultural se transforme realmente en generador de economía y podamos hablar definitivamente en algún momento de industria cultural no solo como un eufemismo.
So what says finally to finish this presentation, Antonio, is that of course we have to change something in the cultural heritage. Or he is sure we have to care of the cultural heritage because it is a public heritage and it has to be protected, but without having fear, he thinks we have to work on a different, to have a different management of the cultural heritage. He is sure the cultural industry is possible, and that is what but changing some few things, and that is what he wants to do. He wants to say that it is possible to talk about cultural industry.
Otra cosa es cómo hacerlo, pero eso quedará para otra ocasión y probablemente para provocar un debate que pongo por encima de la mesa, que se pueda de aquí a próximas reuniones abordar por parte de todos. Nada más y muchas gracias y disculpen la tardanza por mi imposibilidad de comunicarme en inglés.
The last question is how to do all this. This is a debate that can be done in a further moment. The question of how to do it is the most difficult. Antonio wants to thank you and to apologize also because he would have be very happy to do the presentation in English, but it has been not possible.
Mm-hmm. Thank you very much, Antonio, for this interesting reflection that I think that might arise a discussion at the end of the webinar. And since we have to keep the time, we move to the next presentation. The next speaker is Stefano Boccardo, the mayor of Candiolo in Turin, in Italy. And the title of the presentation is Innovative Business Models of Cultural Heritage, Funding and Management, the Protocol of Mayors.
Okay. Good morning, everybody. Thank you for this opportunity. I only ask how I have to do to show a video during my speaking.
You should see at the bottom of your screen, there is a bottom share screen, a green one.
Okay.
Share screen.
Okay.
If you click on this button.
Okay.
Mm-hmm. Yes, it is working.
Okay. You can see the video?
Mm-hmm.
Okay.
Yes.
Well, first of all, I haven't found anyone that can translate, so I try to talk with my bad English, and I hope then you can understand what I say. And first of all, I want to apologize for not being able to stop until the end of the conference, because this is a very busy and particular moment due to pandemic situation. Stupinigi and the agreement between the three municipalities of Candiolo, Orbassano and Nichelino later extended also to Beinasco, Nona and Binovo, and with the collaboration of the Piemonte region and Mauriziano Foundation. 6 municipalities for a unique agreement. The objective of this agreement is to enhance the great value represented by Stupinigi, its facilities, farmhouses, and agricultural products through a well-structured project. There is an important concept. What has been done in the past is not only Iuvarra's beautiful Palazzina di Caccia. In English, I can try to translate with hunting building. That was the king's summer residence. But a whole structure consisting of the building, the most important, the Castelvecchio, in English Old Castle, the farmhouses, the ice house, the dog house, the stables, the hunting routes in the park, and also another little castle, Parpaglia Castle. In other words, an assembly, a combination of subjects, each with its own specific, well-defined and important function. A very well-structured project which I would also define financially self-sustainable and independent. A true work of intelligence and wisdom done in the past, a lot of years ago. If you try to look at the Stupinigi area from above, you can try also with Google Maps, for example, you soon have the sensation of something well planned, accurate, and not casual. And this is exactly the concept that should be the center of future projects and renovations, the focal point from where our municipalities, in collaboration with the Mauriziano Foundation and the Piemonte region, want to start together for a unified project with different initiatives. It is necessary to do a big effort, to do a big work, because a lot of buildings of this area are not in good condition at the moment. In other words, we would like to transform the excellence of our territory that are today underestimated into something valuable and profitable. And for this project, it is also important to consider the resources offered by the territory, the products of this land. Then we think together agricultural, culture, tourism, jobs, and also youth into a comprehensive project. There is a big potential, and it will be important to be good and intelligent in enhancing the reach and qualities of our territory. I hope that you have understand the concept of this project, and we are working all together to reach important objectives. And only I thank you everybody, and for listening my little explanation of this project, and I wish all your families and your countries to overcome in this difficult moment quickly and positively. Thank you, everybody.
Thank you very much for this interesting presentation and for the video. And I think it is a good example of cooperation of various institutions, municipalities with one aim and with one objective. Thank you. Thank you very much.
Thank you to you. Bye.
The next presentation is from Poland. We have with us Monika Majszczyk from the Royal Castle in Chęciny and Anna Kucharczyk from the Świętokrzyskie Voivodeship. And the presentation is Financial Governance and Innovative Aspects of Cultural Heritage Buildings. Anna, please. Yes, yeah. We can see your presentation.
I try to make it a little bit bigger. I think that everything should be clear now. So first of all, greetings to our participants from the team from Poland. And to stick to the allotted time, I'm speaking on behalf of our expert. So Ms. Monika Majszczyk, she is the director of the Royal Castle in Chęciny. But I think I have to move to the first slide. Wait a second. Okay, now should be everything okay. So the title, the theme of my presentation is Financing Management and Innovative Aspects of Cultural Heritage, based on the example of our Royal Castle in Chęciny, in our province, or region Świętokrzyskie. And to start with, a pinch of history. And the Royal Castle was built on the ridge of a rocky hill, quite high, 367 meters above the sea level. And it was built at the turn of the 13th, 14th centuries. The fortress was very, very important object in the medieval times. It was a center of political life. It was a place where gathered and convented knights, kings, queens, etc. So it was a very political object, very, very important object. What is also worth stressing is that in 167 it was badly damaged during the rebellion. Next, three years later, it was rebuilt, but unfortunately during the Swedish deluge, it was again destroyed, and again after that rebuilt. So what's more, after the third partition of Poland, the castle has started into ruin, and unfortunately inhabitants also won't help because they destroyed the ruins themselves. They, for example, obtain materials from the walls of the castle to build their own homes. What's more about the history? And the first conservation was carried out in 1880s. And several years, almost 100 years passed, and in 1947, the provincial conservator entered the ruins in the register of monuments and classified in the first, it was the highest group in the country, but as a permanent ruin. What does this mean? Any actions taken, so any renovations were carried out to protect the object as this permanent ruin, not to renovate it or restore. Until 2010, the Royal Castle in Chęciny was released to a private entity, and since 2011, it has been managed by the municipality and the city of Chęciny. And we can observe the shift in the managing system. In 2014, an organizational unit of Chęciny commune and town called the Royal Castle in Chęciny was established, and this unit since that time have managed the Royal Castle. So to sum up, to show you, I say, the starting point, the castle was neglected. Yes, the walls of the castle fell into complete ruin. The tourist facilities were neglected also. So the tourist traffic did not bring the expected financial results. So it was 2013, and it was the high time to take action, not to lose the potential of that unique place. And a new project has started. This project's title was The Royal Castle in Chęciny, a historic place of the power of the Świętokrzyskie land, complex development of the Castle Hill, and organization of supra-regional event Siege of the Chęciny Fortress. Of course, this project was co-financed from the cohesion policy under the Regional Operational Program of Świętokrzyskie region. It was the ERDF funding, and the revitalization of the Royal Castle cost nearly 1.8 million euros, of which 80% covered by ERDF, so European Regional Development Fund, and about 20% it was the own contribution of the municipality and the city of Chęciny. The whole process of renovation took about 2 years, and below on the slides you have some photos taken. So we can see, for example, renovated defensive walls, various castles rooms. The results of the project, so the decision to launch the project was profitable. Satisfactory results were achieved. For example, the treasury and the castle chapel were renovated. So a square tower, so-called Western Tower, were renovated either and was made available for tourist traffic. The castle hills has been tidied up. A medieval well was rebuilt. Also, a light illumination was installed, and therefore the castle itself is visible from the distance even after dark. The car park and the roads leading to the castle were also rebuilt, so all the infrastructure for tourists. And what's interesting, what may be interesting, numerous card figures connected with the history of the town were placed on the roads leading to the castle. And of course, the end result is best seen by comparison. We have before and after implementation of the project. So some pictures. We can see here square tower and medieval well before and after launching the project. Also upper castle, entry from the western side. As you can see, very comfortable stairs appeared. On the right, we can see the picture. What's more, lower castle, you can see the infrastructure that appeared, infrastructure dedicated to tourism without any interference in the old shape of the castle. Very nice located. Upper Castle, once again, this time full of tourists. Castle Hills, Eastern Gate, as you can see, a magnificent entry at the middle of the picture. And as I said, the revitalization, the project itself produced a very good results. What is worth stressing is that the Royal Castle in Chęciny has become the most frequently visited monuments of this type, not only in our region, but also in all Poland, whole Poland. The revitalization has also a huge impact on the life of the citizens. It was an improvement of the quality of life of inhabitants, and of course, the positive image of our region was shaped by these projects. After the revitalization, Royal Castle is full of people. It's a living place, as we can maybe say. Is a place where many interesting events are organized, and the most important of them was starting from this opening of the castle, May-long weekend at the castle. So 3 days were nicely organized here. Children's Day, Herbs and Witches, typical for our region. Archery tournament for the Queen of Bona Golden Arrow, so any archery enthusiast can participate in it. Off fashion show, it is a grand fashion event where the top Polish designers present their projects. Medieval Chęciny, so we are taken on a journey to the times of medieval settlement. What's more, Nights at the Castle. On the left corner, you can see this white lady from one of the legend who is carrying visitors. But of course, this infrastructural project and all this event organized won't probably have such an effect without these promotional activities. And we have to stress that the management team constantly updates their website, www.zamek.chęciny.pl. And what's more, they are very active in social media. They run press campaigns or events organized at the castle. They are also organizing marketing email campaigns and also traditional marketing channels they use. For example, they publish posters, leaflets, and they organize personalized marketing actions that are aimed at particular social groups such as students, seniors, families with children. And of course, they adjust their promotional activities and they offer to the seasons, to type of tourists or current events. So the offer to visit the castle is very rich. Just to give an example, sightseeing with Niemczówka, this is historical tenement house in Chęciny. Sightseeing tours for breakfast, so with the participation of local catering establishments, guided tours, visit with QR codes, visiting through play, exclusive tours. It is also a perfect place for royal style betrothal, civil marriages, photo sessions, night at the castle, and school tours, senior tours, family tours. So something good for everyone. I would like to draw now your attention to the graph. As you can see, since 2015, we can observe a steady increase in the number of visitors. The number of visitors is very high, and the year 2019 was the highest number of visitors. But let's see the year of 2020. Despite of COVID-19 outbreak, we reached the number of visitors that is much higher than it was at this time the year earlier. And this is the highest touristic traffic, as you can observe in the summer months, these red columns. But what about the scheme of management of the Royal Castle? At the top, we have CHECINY commune and town. It is a local authority responsible for the castle, but the subordinate is the director of the Royal Castle, and the following sections are subordinate to the director. So we have tourist service section, HR and finances, tourist information, and administration and promotion section. So it is important how the duties are divided between certain group of people, and accordingly to this presented scheme, it really works very good. What's more, financial management. To talk about financial management, we must tell you about the incomes, external sources, including EU funds. Of course, we are talking about this revitalization project, but not only. Next, sales revenues, so from money from tickets, souvenirs, services. And what is next? Income is discharged to the CHECINY commune and town, and these local authorities covers expenses connected with the functioning of the Royal Castle. It is in the managing system, the most important is the attitude of the team, of the people that are involved in the project, in the process itself. So what the team, what the workers done? They have introduced a one-way tour. Of course, when we speak about the outbreak of COVID-19, they have to shift and change some directions, but they introduced a one-way tour. In enclosed spaces, the tourists are required to cover their mouth and nose, as well as the workers. Of course, the hand disinfection was obligatory, so this disinfectant were available. Tourists shall be informed of the obligation to maintain the required distance. They prefer non-contact forms of payment, as in whole country, and they monitor the Ministry of Health announcement to update the guidelines for observing security rules at the castle in connection with the pandemic on an ongoing basis. And of course, the outburst of the epidemic also evoked the change in promotional activities. So visiting a castle was also possible via the internet. They launched virtual walk, not only in the castle, but also around the castle. What's more, not only, also the workers of the Royal Castle in CHECINY was involved in different activities, for example, in making wooden souvenirs in artistic handicraft, as you can see in the picture. And as it is stressed on in the slide, how the group stated that their priority is the satisfaction and safety of tourism, and they actively work to enrich the tourist offer to the castle, where all the time very active in social media, constantly improving the standard of their services. They organize a number of interesting events and tourist attractions, as we may see on next slides. They open to interesting ideas whose implementation makes the castle offer even more attractive. They constantly were looking for external sources of financing to develop the castle and its offer. And what's more, they strive for tourists to recommend us and return to the castle, and many tourists did it. And some more the activities taken during the epidemic. So weekend of Świętokrzyskie Legends, medieval craftsmanship, 1 million tourists at the castle. So it is a huge number of tourists. As you can see, the million we reached. thematic meetings, for example, visiting with Mr. Volodiyovsky. It is a character from our novel writer. Events organized in the castle in cooperation with Niemczówka Historical Tenement House. Night at the castle. And herbs and witches, again, very popular among especially children. Holidays end with all these nights, swords, etc. And some workshops dedicated to honey. To sum up, the Royal Castle in Chęciny is a place with versatile character. It has both closed and open wide spaces. It is a perfect place for old and the youngest. It is a place where history meets with modern days. Therefore, during the epidemic, we do not be badly affected by, for example, low tourist traffic. And because due to the, as I said, due to this open air character, is the place where tourists are more likely to stay during the COVID-19 period. What is at the end worth stressing, it is that as a result of this gradual process of loosening of sanitary restrictions during summer holidays, so about May and June, tourist traffic grows steadily to reach even higher values in following months than those recorded in the same period earlier. It is also due to these actions taken by all the managing team. And I think that this managing system really works. So effective management is about to adapting activities to the situation in which we found ourselves. Therefore, we can say that we have succeeded in our actions. So thank you very much. And I think that our expert, Ms. Monika Majczyk, will answer your questions after the break at the end of our meeting. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much for this good practice on revitalization and the bringing to life of the Royal Castle in Chęciny. And I think it is a very good practical example of a concrete heritage site of the management and also how you deal with this COVID pandemic time. So now we have different examples from Spain, Italy, and Poland of cultural heritage projects, but how to conduct a feasibility study and how to evaluate cultural heritage projects from the financial point of view. Now we will have a presentation in this regard of Sania Tisma from IRMO Institute. Sania, please.
Mm-hmm. Hello, greetings from Zagreb. I will show my presentation about feasibility methods and financial evaluation of cultural heritage projects. A few days ago, at the workshop for Heritage Interreg Central Europe project, we had the opportunity to hear an excellent presentation on financial instruments used for cultural heritage interventions by Susanna Longo from Italy. A summary is provided on this slide. The basic groups of financial instruments relevant for cultural heritage projects are grants or non-repayable funding, financial instruments, repayable funding with a return for investors, market revenues, sale of goods and services, and also hybrid instruments. Funding sources are usually public budget, or public and private partnership, or private from banks, alternative channels, philanthropic investors, crowdfunding, etc. Some of the characteristics of financial instruments that are important for cultural heritage are that all financial instruments are not suitable for all types of intervention. It is also good to use financial instruments in combination with other support services, for example, training, consultancy, energy audits. Conservation and management costs are important. The regular operating and maintenance costs, unfortunately, tend to be forgotten. It is also recommended to adopt a holistic view take into consideration social, cultural, economic, and environmental aspects. Sustainability and durability are also very important. Unsustained project can result in loss of investment, and it is important to develop a strategic approach, and management plans that set clear goals for heritage site management. At the Keep On Project conference in Kielce, in Poland, we had already talked about the financing of cultural heritage and some project appraisal methods such as ex-ante or midterm evaluation. We also talked about how important these verification methods are for cultural heritage, since they often involve significant financial amounts, and the problem of investment sustainability is common. Some of the methods that can be used instead of ex-ante evaluation are also financial feasibility analysis, impacts on financial costs and revenues for investor, cost-benefit analysis, systematic overview of all advantages and disadvantages of the project or intervention for society. We also have cost-effectiveness analysis, environmental impact assessment, economic impact studies, or multi-criteria analysis. The choice of the project appraisal method will depend on the expectation of the project itself. The following slides that will indicate the process of financial analysis in a cultural heritage project. Several tables are presented. One is the calculation of financial internal rate of return of the investment for the project in cultural heritage sector in the time period of 10 years. Expected revenues and operating and investment costs are used to calculate the financial profitability of the project. To calculate the financial sustainability of the project, for this, initial financial resources investment in the restoration of cultural heritage and their costs are added to the previous calculation. So the investment needed is also here on the table. My colleagues from the cultural heritage sector tell me that the financial instruments are the most uninteresting part of the cultural management. So especially the issue about discounting. Discounting is often forgotten in calculations, and it is important because the future money is worth less than current money. So with this exercise or these formulas, we actually calculate the actual value of all further costs, all future costs and benefits. Financial investments for cultural heritage are extremely important, and especially important are social benefits of the project. Therefore, we point out the value of cost-benefit analysis. This method systematically seeks out and assess the costs and benefits of cultural heritage projects because they are likely to provide a net benefit to the community. Also, cost-benefit method recognizes that there are substantial costs to providing cultural heritage project for community benefit, and analyze that the way in which costs and benefits are distributed within the society. For example, who receives benefits or who pay the costs. Cost is actually a measure of value of what must be forgone to conserve the heritage environment. The costs of cultural heritage interventions are the foregone benefits due to employing scarce resources for heritage conservation purposes instead of putting these resources to their next best use. Benefits represent opportunities. The value of opportunities foregone as a result of heritage listings, such as development opportunities lost, decrease in capital value of the land, consequences of foregone options to improve livability or usability as a result of restriction or modification or adaptation to current owner use and enjoyment. The additional maintenance and repair costs instead to maintain the heritage-specific characteristics. How to measure costs and benefits. Indicators of the benefits of heritage interventions are the collection of individuals' willingness to pay or individuals' willingness to accept compensation to tolerate damage. Usually the question is how to measure non-usable values. What is actually the benefit of cost, the value of cost-benefit analysis. There are many methods, but two of them are mostly used. Is this hedonic pricing method and travel cost method. Travel cost method is a technique which is useful for assessing the benefits of cultural heritage places that are frequently visited by tourists. There are several key steps how to implement cost-benefit analysis. The first one is we start with context analysis and project objectives. This is usually socioeconomic and political context. Then we have project identification, need analysis. What is the main problem or need as a justification for the project and who are beneficiaries? Then we have a feasibility and option analysis. The question are, is this project technically feasible? Do we use the right technology, right design? Is it institutionally feasible? Do we have people who can manage the project? Based on the feasibility and option analysis, we can have several alternatives. For example, do nothing, do minimum, do something. This is an example of the information we get by implementing cost-benefit analysis. For example, when we assess the demand for land near cultural heritage object, is it better with or without project? In this slide, in years 28 years period. Then we have financial analysis. The questions are, what is the project's commercial profitability? What amount of finance is needed and how will the project be financed? What will be the source of financing? For example, EU grant. Will the project be financially sustainable from the significant period of time? Then we have economic analysis as a fifth step. We analyze the contribution of the project to welfare or well-being of the community or region. So all impacts are included. It is from the perspective of society. We have here market analysis. We value non-market impact and also indirect economic impacts, especially, for example, employment. And last step is risk assessment and sensitivity analysis. We try to assess the impacts of different factors on results. For example, non-payment of bills, higher investment costs, or change in political environment, which is also very important. How it looks graphically. We have project select. We can see the approach from the project selection, and also the approach trying to assess finding up. If the project is, if the economic net present value is bigger than zero, and financial net present value is equal to zero, then the project is needed by the local community. And what is important to us, it is worth financing it from the EU grant. To sum up, cost-benefit analysis promotes transparency. The results of well-executed cost-benefit analysis can be clearly linked to assumption, theory, methods, and procedures used. in it, so this improves accountability. Cost-benefit analysis takes a community-wide perspective and promotes comparability. It is useful for decisions by government related to project selection, timing, size. Also, cost-benefit analysis can help to select the best project alternative, can help to improve projects in related to timing, capacity, and cost optimization, and also show risk factors for risk management. What is important? Assumptions are from the beginning from the first step in cost-benefit analysis are important for the outcomes of cost-benefit analysis, and this analysis can help to inform decisions by quantifying the impacts of the proposed cultural heritage project on different groups within society, but it cannot make the decision. This is from my side. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Sanja, for your presentation. I hope that this kind of cost-benefit analysis will be more and more used in the cultural heritage sector. Feel free to write your questions in the chat box that we can discuss at the end of the webinar. And now we will have a 10-minute break. I hope you all are able to stay, and we will see each other at 10 to 12. Yes, in 10 minutes. Okay?
Okay, thank you.
Thank you. See you in 10 minutes. Okay. Hello, everyone. I hope you are still here. I think we can start with the next presentation right now. We have with us Dr. Dorotea Papatanasio-Tsurt. I hope I'm saying this in a correct way, from the Hellenic Open University, Cyprus Open University in Greece. And the title of the presentation is Culture as an Instrument for Mass Construction, Communicating Cultural Values to the Public and Policymakers. Dorotea, please. We cannot hear you, Dorotea.
Yes, hello, it's there.
Yes, now
all right,
it's
so
perfect.
I don't know what happened. Anyway, I'm trying to subvert as much as possible, and I'm trying to convince policymakers to change a little bit the views. Now, I don't see how I can move my screen. Is frozen.
Use the arrows or just click on the screen.
Okay, I'm clicking. Yeah, I have some issues with maybe this mouse. Anyway, so what are we going to talk about today? We can't redefine cultural investments. We can't revisit and revise the role of culture in society unless we are updating our image of the global trends, because everything, take France for instance, everything that happens today has an impact on our behavior, cultural behavior, and behavior of a citizen. A citizen in countries that respect human rights and the rule of law. This is Europe, and this is the Europe we cherish and won't have. A very quick look, 5 points altogether, to the European cultural policy, focusing on an innovation that it is called the European Audiovisual Media Services Directive. I'm going to rush some case studies, and then after the COVID, we may have, or we may witness really to implement the European Heritage Alliance Manifesto that is now a manifesto. We hope that is going to become a policy. And this is the, let me say, collaboration of Europa Nostra under the supervision of Commissioner Gabriel. So let's go to see the global trends. And I believe that before the COVID, you all know what is happening. We are here in Zooming. That means we are witnessing the fourth industrial revolution at its full length. And despite the COVID, I have to say that the cultural and creative industry sector had vacancies before, recruiting either from India and whatever countries available. So there are many vacancies. The audiovisual media sector is even very strong and is even actually occupying 93% or even 95, 97, say some statistics, of the cultural and creative industry sector, displacing the book, very unfortunately for me, despite I'm working there, but very unfortunately. And what I have to say as a personal remark, I'm very sorry for the Brexit in this under this viewpoint because the United Kingdom was the greatest contributor of and producer of cultural creative industries in Europe. So we're going to fill the vacuum somehow, to think how to fill. We have to make a nodal remark here, The study of the Council of Europe in 2013, discussing all the TV, all the audiovisual, all the cinema stuff, and including the games. And guess what? 330 billion losses every year because the American overused the European satellites. But besides the economic loss, the horrible thing was that the study revealed that we are nourishing a horror-insensitive youth, visualizing alienated contexts outside of the European cultural values. And this is the result. Think of France in the last days. The American Medical Association, cross-checking this information with latest data, in 2019 warns the parents not to allow any kind of audiovisual narratives with their kids, because this leads to lack of empathy. And this is very cultural, ladies and gentlemen. We need to focus on this. So is there a remedy with the new audiovisual media services directive? I'm going to comment later on in detail. We all know that we have social media sharing and influencers, but what kind of participatory culture do we want to have? This is the question. And let's see what are the predictions for after the COVID. Now, if I ask my mayor, and I do ask because I work a lot with public procurements in situ, what is he going to say? I want more visibility, but I will know that he wants more votes because he wants to be reelected. And I grant him the right if he's a good mayor, but what if he's not? So what about the money? Do we want money or do we want audience? Do we want visibility or do we want entertainment and Luna parks? The American view is on the right side of the slide. And look, the Americans are still a superpower, contributing with almost 21 trillion to the global GDP. And the American view is on the fragmented build of the European Union. Look at this picture, is very good. All the countries fragmented, Germany, France, but all together we are indeed a rival. So I was tempted to make a small addition, and I saw that we are bringing all together in 2017. Now is not a good time to count because of the COVID, but about 18 trillion euros. So we are a rival, and we have to stay a rival if we want to survive. The next question I had is, okay, now, how many people do produce this global GDP? Because if I compare, for instance, the United States to India, and India is 40 million less than China, I see that India is contributing with 2 trillion and much lesser people, the United States citizen, with 300 million, they produce most of the global GDP, so congratulations for that. So statistics is an issue, and numbers in tourism and all these kind of numbers have to be contrasted wisely to understand what's really the value behind. On the other hand, what are the richest country according to the per capita distribution is Qatar, but is Qatar the most cultural country because they have all this money? What about the latest news from the Commission? Malta is forecasted to have in 2019. Well, COVID came, but anyway, that was the forecast. And reading a lot about Malta, despite these investments made from Eastern countries in Malta, they have also a problem with the famous journalist that has been massacred because she was trying to reveal the truth. So economy and culture do not always go together. A brief look in the last 3 programming period. More or less, you may see here at the left side that we have the same money for development. This programming period is going to boom, according to what Commissioner Gabriel has announced many times in many fora. But let's stick to that what has been already from Eurostat as uncontested data. What do we see here? More or less the same the same funding for all of us. It used to be 28, now we're 27. However, if I ask my friend the economist, why is culture so low funded within the total funding framework? He's going to say something very simple. Listen, I'm the economist, I have the Excel, I give you 100 euros to make a museum, you have to give me 120 back. All right. And what does it mean? It means that he doesn't understand the benefits of culture, which are intangible, because he understands the Excel, he understands input, output, expenditure, profit, and bankruptcy, of course. We have been experts now in Greece being knowledgeable in bankruptcy. So, okay, if I am asking why so low the contribution of culture at a transnational level, he's going to say, hey, listen, this is a subsidy sector. You have to subsidize from your own nation, from your own country, from your own state, regional government. And I am asking my friend the economist, what is the point of bringing walls and consume my own heritage, which I know I'm interested in what other people do, and I want to export it? He says, if you want to export it, you have to invest. If I have to invest in you, what are you going to give me back? So I'm saying to him, I'm going to give you back knowledge, behavior, and ethics. I'm going to give you good citizens, social cohesion, and enforced identity. And he says, but this doesn't fit in my Excel. I don't have a column for that. So I have to explain to my economist why the return on investment in culture is very important. And I thought of something very simple. Let's extract, it's just a simple arithmetics, addition and extraction. So let's go and see how much is violence. When I was writing this, all these things didn't happen in France, but I was very sad that it has been a little bit correctly forecasted. Then I am going to say to my economist, listen, more or less you give me 350 billion in 6 years. And I'd say to you, extract please the cost of violence in the EU, 226 billion. And listen, 87% is gender-based. In Scandinavia, are the number worse. Extract the cost of suicide, which is a kind of social pressure, so violence. Extract the cost of police and extract the cost of violence due to violence, regeneration of health due to violence. So in the end, the money you give me is not enough to grow because I spend it to cover the cost of violence. And this is because you, as an economist, do not believe that the intangible benefits can bring me forward. Let's see from another country a very interesting example. This is the concept of the blue fatherland from Turkey. When I met this guy here, Zaka Bey, I was a student. I was quite afraid of him because if my professor would be asking me in the exam what he was doing so much back and forth, one with the Byzantines, one with the Seljuk, Byzantine, Seljuk, that I lost really the track of his doings, and I was very afraid of that exam. So even today, very modern poem, he is called Madman Blessed by Poseidon. So I suppose the author doesn't know who is Poseidon, because P is with not with a capital P, but never mind. This guy has reappeared in my life after 40 years, and I never thought I'd meet him again, because there has been a quite big celebration with his ship lantern. He died in the year of the Lord 1092. And his ship lanterns miraculously has survived, and it has been brought to Smyrna, Izmir in Turkish, for the celebration of the city that he has won conquest. Well, at that time, there was no navy in the Seljuk Empire, but the idea that somebody has been renamed to something else means that this powerful tool to create consciousness and delegate the people to one direction or another direction is bringing fruits, but is not bringing the fruits we want. Another small example, because I was very curious how this lantern has really survived. It looks very shiny to me. I checked the museum where all this information comes from, and this is the Istanbul Maritime Museum, and then I saw something else. I saw the oldest galley in the world, which is on the right side, and it's a clear Renaissance galley, and to the expert eye, you see that it's not armed. So the oldest galley in the world, excuse me, it's Phoenician, and you can see this here. But this is policy. Let's go back to Europe. What happens to the new landscape in regards to policy? What I like about this directive is that it's like the taxes Trump put on steel. Well, after we realized that we are US controlled and this narrative.
Dorothea, we cannot hear. Okay, now we hear you.
Okay, maybe I am moving and this is very subtle, so I have to stop moving. I'm very passionate about this, as you know. So I go back to this directive that is now giving a possibility, most important, Article 16, promotion and distribution of the European heritage work. It will give smaller countries or countries with not a dominant language in conversation, also in communication, also in cultural issues, it will give the possibility to create, promote, and distribute the works. And how this is going to happen? This is going to happen because a 20% of quota is being placed on the global distributors. What does it mean? Imagine you are a Netflix, but you're not a distributor, you have a supermarket. Then the state comes and tells you, listen, you have quite a lot of crap there, and I want the people to have quality food. So take the crap out of this and put 30% good quality stuff. So when you are Netflix, you panic because you say, oh my God, I got to find new providers. And these new providers are these countries that are going to promote and distribute their heritage works, especially in the audiovisual domain. The audiovisual domain is not restricted only to AV productions or narratives or films. It can resurrect the whole European cultural heritage that is now, as an object ID, let me say, imprisoned in the data archives of Europeana or the National Archives. So everything can come to light. It's very also important because it has user protection rules, transparency rules, children protection from advertisement, and so on and so on, and obliges the same the global distributors as the single users in regards to user-generated content against hate speech and public provocation. Finally, the European Audiovisual Media Services Directive is on place and is being followed. Now, I go to the pathogeny of a cultural investors, and I am addressing the policymakers. Now, you know that every investment in the public domain, cultural heritage, is actually subsidized by the states and even by the European Union at transnational efforts, but is a hostage to the public procurement. The money to do something really good, they are tantalizing the evaluators. They are tantalizing the people that are writing the programs because it is too much for them. So what do we do if we have a cultural investment? I know a little bit of historian, I know a little bit of a camera assistant, I put myself as a project designer, and there you are. No, ladies and gentlemen, this is not the case. I asked years ago my teacher, Aldo Dirush, and I say, Maestro, how come that the BBC series, even if they are soap operas, they are really perfect in the implementation? And he said to me, because, my dear child, the main provider to the BBC is the University of Oxford. So what do the British do better? They indeed have invented territorial development, at least in that domain. They have committed public institutions, they practice marketing and communication, they involve the shareholders, the tour operators, or whatever other industry comes there. And they do not miss to put in place all the experts. And all these experts, in comparison to the previous one, they make jobs. they are employed. So if you do the things right, you even avoid the brain gain for the other countries and the brain drain in Europe. So doing the thing the right way is quite an important issue and has to be expressed not only in policy making, not only in the regional operational programs, but even to the ladies and the gentlemen that are writing the programs for us. Forget now the policymakers for a moment and let's go to our audience. Now, what we have experienced, those at least who are working on site, in situ with productions, there was the maxim that during the COVID, all the museums had to go public. All the museums had to make a new website. All the museums and the archaeological sites, they wanted narrations and these things. But the issue is not to spend the time while the people are locked, but to create added value. And this is a process that has not to be connected to COVID, to the particularity of COVID. What we need is to take the youth and reform it. And how can I do this? Because factual information, as you know, is important for the expert, but it is not good inside museums and collections, especially if you deal with young people. So we need a new narrative for Europe. We need a new narrative for its small location. We need a new narrative that can be expressed with different media, not necessarily AV, and leaves to the youth a platform for their voices, a platform for creativity. And how am I going to do this? So I need to have a cognitive and emotional impact, and I can do this only with multisensory experiences at heritage places, sites, museums, and collection, and whatever else you wish. Why? Because I want somebody to read my book and stop smoking. I want somebody to read my ebook and stop littering the archaeological site. I want somebody to see my film and stop drinking and beating his girlfriend, whatever. The places. The numbers, you know, we spoke about numbers today, but I'm very skeptical with numbers. All the ministers of tourism indicate in Greece every year how many, forget the COVID era, but the years before, and it's going to be the years after, how many people came into Greece this year, and wonderful. No, the numbers are indicative, but they're not significant, because look at this picture. One is Venice, one is Rhodes, the flagship of Italian and Greek tourism respectively. From the 20 million people in 2019 that came to Venice, even a little bit more, only 3% went to see monument sites and collections. So what are you talking about? They came, but do they understand? Do they perceive? Do they cherish? Do they appreciate? Or is there a policy they are lacking? There is a policy lacking. The same goes for Rhodes. The numbers, they say 12% out of the 4 million tourists. And you see, they're all outside of the medieval city, outside of the Piazza San Marco. So they are outside, they don't go inside, and they don't have an interest because we do not create the interest at policy-making level. Take Rhodes, for instance. Now, here is my favorite builder, Pierre d'Aubusson, one of the grand maîtres of the medieval era, who was a great engineer. What I want my visitor to see is to scan my QR code, read my book, take it with him, use all the important media, and share this experience in his or her network. But what am I going to tell him? Only dates? No, I have to tell him about the stories that are behind. And I will find the stories everywhere, and I know that the stories are everywhere. I need to fix the stories. The map that you see on the upper right is the map that you get at the tourist office. What is going the map tell you? The map can't speak, is a silent object. The monument itself can't speak, is a silent object. I give you an example. The great hospital of the Rhodes, which is really the great hospital in Europe, the first hospital with specialties, with doctors, with nurses, with hosting 2 genders at those distant time in the 12th century, is called Archaeological Museum, so that if by chance you made it on your map, you don't go inside, because who wants another archaeological museum that is so boring? The same goes for the Santa Caterina, which is the first hotel made for pilgrims. It is called Hospice St. Catherine. It is so unused for the young people that, of course, they don't go inside. Despite the Florence Charter distinction that they had for the 20 years restoration, these monuments are not visited. And this is Rhodes, ladies and gentlemen, the flagship of the Greek tourism. Now, how am I going to make a story? That I have to involve stakeholders, because each investment that is top down doesn't work. After the funding is over, it is being put in a drawer. I need to do research, I need to have expert contribution, and I need to signify the monuments. All the heritage registers in continental Europe, including France, that is way ahead in heritage management, do not have statements of significance. We do not know why. They have numbers, they have indicators, they have conservation protection indicators, but not why it is something significant. If it is something not significant, or if I can't tell you why something is significant, how am I going to persuade you to cherish it, to go there, to experience, to do? It's not possible. We need a new heritage narrative for Europe, especially an audiovisual heritage narrative, and only the cultural and creative industries can bring this transformation into life. And for the policy making, designations are not enough. We have UNESCO designations, we have regional designations, we have national designations. But do we have a visitor-driven communication policy? Do we approach our youth with compelling stories and not with statistics and media? So what do I have to do? Research, collaboration with stakeholders, develop the prototype, test the prototype in situ, arrive to storytelling, and this is expensive. What can I do today? I have the App Store, I can go for a multimedia publication, I have possibilities, you can see here. This is, of course, static, but everything is a film. Then you can see the Maître d'Aubusson coming up, and he's explained how he's doing. All of the heroes are here, and we don't speak about places. Places are the great imperative, but stories are important to attract our audience. Now we have entered the cross since this year. We have Apple and Google Play. They have created the first cross-platform ebook. It's not as good as the App Store, but anyway, is accessible by all. There are many possibilities to do things if we really want to connect the stories and to create really an investment. Now, my favorite investment is in Italy. And I love this even more than his creator. I'm gonna give you two words from this. Is the world, or is a tip, the genre is called narrative museum. So it is a museum that is peopling the building with stories. And the approach is really the cultural design approach, the BBC approach. The experts develop in the territory, they work together with local institutions, creative industries, and the human capital, and they produce something that is replicable and has a very specific value. Take a look at the castle. The castle is on the top, and we have 300 inhabitants. And if you take a look on the map on the right side, you see that nobody lives there but those people. So it's a dot in the map. 10 years ago, the Regione Basilicata has invested 7 million euros to restore the castle. Well done. But only the cultural investment in the creative industries brought the visitors, and that was by far lesser. So with 1.5 million, you brought 14,000 visitors. And if that would not be for the COVID, I would give you better numbers. So interior space and exterior space, each space has a different experience. And we're going to see, culminating in the multivision in the courtyard. And there is a specific economic policy, 1 ticket, 2 performances, create 1 overnight stay. For this small village that nobody knew before, that was not even a landmark on the Google map, it is a revolution. But the most important thing is that the local population has been involved right from the start and has played a role even in the production of the film, even as comparse actors, or even supporting, even going to Cinecittà, getting to know the director, the famous actors of the Italian theater that volunteered to help us with this. So each room has another experience and includes also tactile experiences. One here, if you see, a colleague of mine is very happy because he could touch the personal belongings of the emperor, because these are copies given to us by the Vatican museums. You see the huge crown in the middle that is narrating the lives of the peasants in the time of the emperor. So they are ancestors, and the actors that are acting there are the people from the territory, from the village. So this investment has this very important particularity. Not only it is pioneering in the cultural and creative industries and has, I don't know how many awards, I stopped counting after 3, it is that is involving the local population, and that is why it is still sustained and is going to be expanded. And in the evening, you can see the walls of the castle fuse and metamorphose and change and take another shape. Here, all these dots are the heads of the people towards an immersive experience. This is my favorite, and I think it always will be. So the results after this was in operation about 4 years, 6 new businesses, women-driven businesses. I'm very proud of this. From 0 to 14,000 visitors, 3 awards. The museum is extended. I happen to learn about this yesterday. So visitor-driven communication and social media, they don't do any advertisement because the people that come there have taken over. There has been many publications, from the academic point of view are quite enough, and has been replicated the model driving another 4 EU projects. The overall results. If your investment provokes attention, it creates mindful visitor. If it reveals the meanings, the visitor follow. If it focuses on guidance, the visitor participate because they understand. And in the end, the visitor consumes the stories because they hate lectures. And with this, my lecture is over. Hopefully, the collaboration between Europeana, the Commissioner Gabriel, who promised on the 6th of May that on the Europe Day that this is going to be realized very soon, and I urge you all to go to the to the Europe Day manifesto, sign it, because we need the signature to change the landscape of heritage work. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Dorothea, for your powerful presentation. There were some great discussion points here, and I hope we will have the time to get to this at the end of the webinar. And now, if you agree, I would like to move to the Netherlands, because our speaker from the Netherlands will have to leave soon. So we have with us Jan van der Merwe from the Circle of Friends of Hertogenbosch, and the title of the presentation is The Force of a Volunteer Heritage Network. Please.
Okay, I have to find my presentation. Let's see what happened. I can't find my presentation now.
No problem, we can wait.
No, but I don't know where it is. It's on my desktop, but I can't. Shall I open it? I think I should open it again. Close it down and then open it again, maybe. Okay. Yeah, I can't find it. It's on my desktop, but I can't find it. So maybe you should ask for the other presentation, and I
Okay.
will find it.
So we move then to the presentation from Portugal. We have Professor Diogo Martins from Portugal with us.
Yes, hello. Can you hear me?
Yes.
Great. Let's see if I can share the screen.
Okay.
Okay. So, yeah. Can you see it?
Yes, it is
okay.
Working.
Great. So, hello everyone. Thank you for the invitation to be here. My name is Diogo Martins, and I'm representing a non-profit association called Indiror. And I'm here to talk about the future of tradition, or at least what we believe it will be the future of tradition, and how can we create it. So how challenging change can honor our cultural heritage and our past, and find ways to a brighter future, hopefully. So who are we? We are a non-profit cultural association behind the northern hills of Portugal. It's a beautiful region, and it's a region that has been struggling with desertification, and basically there's not a lot of people here, and we want to try to change that with promoting culture. So what we are going to present here, or what I'm going to present here, is of course our view of how we can change and shape our future, but it's always a personal view, so feel free then to ask questions or give opinions in the end. So what are we doing? We're doing cultural production and promotion that is community driven, and it's basically it has the ability to change our community. We believe culture has that power to fight problems that are deep rooted in our community, in our culture. So what we try to do is question that and hopefully try to make it evolve. In the past, we have been nominated for different awards, and in 2018 we have been highlighted by David Byrne, the Talking Heads vocalist, as one of the reasons to be cheerful with the world for the way we do cultural production. So how are we doing it? We are trying to challenge change and give tradition a future. So basically what this means is that we try to take these small problems that are deeply rooted in our cultural heritage. We believe those are problems, especially in the intangible ways that for some reason are dated, and we try to challenge that and give it to the community and try to question it. So cultural heritage is a serious topic, and I say this, I don't mean this in the better way. I think it's cultural heritage became a topic of mostly tourism brochures and master theses, but that doesn't mean that it translates to the communities that it is inserted. So basically, I think what the problem with cultural heritage is that it has to be taken for the community and give it a public discussion with the community that it is inserted in. To try to do this and hopefully have guidelines for what we were doing, we decided to create this manifesto that it's basically guiding us in all this. And it has two main guidelines. So the first one, it is all inspired by a Portuguese poet, Miguel Torga, and he said that universal is just the unbounded local. So it means that the only difference between the whole world and a small place in the northern hills of Portugal is nothing. It's just the borders that are culturally imposed, and that we ourselves put in it. So we wanted to make our community understand that we are inserted in a global community, in a bigger community, and to give it, especially the new generations, the tools to break down walls in a world that is tending towards the opposite creation. So it's basically give, especially the youth in our region, the tools to burst their own bubble and to make them stay here, realize that we have things here that matter and can be important to them. We want to give them the tools and the information, the cultural context, so they can appreciate it and hopefully stay. The second guideline is that the world is a universal reality, is integrated in a billion individual identities. And so it circles around the same issue, that is, we are, of course, a universal reality, but within it, we have billion of individual identities. And the same goes not just for the whole world, but in a small town, we can have billion different identities and different interpretations of those identities. So we wanted to establish cultural identity by similar bonds instead of difference. This meaning that we wanted people to get together for what they share and not for what they are opposed to. And this is a big problem in the world today, that we tend to create our identities by opposing to others. And I think it's important more than ever that we are together and find things that we have in common. So deep cultural programming that forced the interchange between the community and the different realities. Meaning that basically what we do is we bring context from all over the world and force our community to crash with it and hopefully learn from it and realize that we are not that different. And if we have those differences, maybe we should learn from it. So this all might seem a bit confusing and theoretic, but let's just give some examples of what we do and how we try to do it. So the first examples that we tried to do was called Trilha, and is basically a concert series with international artists. So the problem that we thought would existed was access to culture. So we live in a region that is not big, near the big crowded places like Lisbon or Porto. So we had no access to culture in our community. We had bad cultural self-esteem, which means that people don't always appreciate what we are as a community, our past, our legacy, our heritage. And we always felt like we had this black sheep syndrome of like feeling that we are never as good as the other places, as a community, or the other people. Our costumes or our traditions are not as good as the other. So we try to fight that. So the solution, we hired these high-profile artists, I mean, really big artists, Oscar-winning, Tony, Grammy-winning artists. And we make these tours that are exclusive to low-density territories. So they would not go to Porto or Lisbon. They would come and stay for a long period, like 5 to 10 days, in those small towns and play there. So we wanted them to interact with the community. They would go to schools, they would play on the streets, they would go to meet people that are doing relevant work in the community, and hopefully the community will learn from these international artists, and the international artists will learn from the community and have this interaction. So highlights were Glenn Ansert, for example, that is a friend and stay here, Lisa Hannigan, Jesse Harris, and dozens of other artists. This was the project that was highlighted by David Byrne. By the way, we were changing the world doing community-based culture. Another project that was interesting for us was Plano Salto. So Chaves is our city is in the northern border of Portugal, close to Spain, in Galicia. So we have this cultural heritage of sharing a culture with this region, but we think that we was not being explored, especially by the new generations. So there was a loss of cultural bond with the Galician neighbors, and no easy access to new media education in the region by the kids here. So if they wanted to pursue studies or a profession in new media, it was really hard for them to do it here. So we decided to combine this, and we realized that there was no recognition of oral tradition by the new generations. These stories, this culture that was shared with Spain was not being created awareness by the new generations. And plus, we have these isolated villages in the region that have like 3 or 4 people are deserted, and we wanted to maybe try to help give them some visibility. So we created this year-long media education program in schools of the region, and we basically taught the kids how to do and film movies and use the cameras, use the sound. And we brought these high-profile directors and actors from Portugal and in Galicia to help them and create this content. So the scripts were all based in stories of oral tradition. with subjects of the Portuguese border, and the locations that they were filming in were in these isolated villages, so they could only do production there, and that's it. So one of these more recent projects, and it happened with COVID, I think a lot of people doing culture and all over the world struggled a bit. So we tried not to concentrate a lot in our problems, but try to hopefully make our work accessible to others so we can find a solution as a community. So the problem was COVID, right? I think it's still a problem. Local business were struggling, and there was no work for music and culture professionals. So the local business, like restaurants, like shops, everyone was basically trying to work, and there was no people here to basically make it work. So the solution for us was try to kickstart this project for cultural tourism. We had a feeling that small places like our town would be privileged in the summer for not having many people. So if a tourist would have to go somewhere, they would probably go to those small places. And we had a feeling from the start that maybe we should take advantage of that. So we started very early doing this cultural project that was basically take our monuments and locals in the city and associate them with one artist, one recognizable Portuguese artist. And bromance. This is image is an example of Nadir Afonso Museum, but we did some others. So we had almost 50K views, which is not bad, and I want to believe that we had a small part on the influence that tourism in the region grew 80% this year. So I hopefully we will have a small part in that. And finally, a project that is not yet been launched. We want to launch it in November, this next month. Let's see how things develop with COVID and if we can do it. But it's basically a concert series with female-only artists. So the problem that we find was studying a bit of oral tradition was that our oral tradition stories were deeply patriarchal, had deeply patriarchal tendencies, high misogynistic oral tradition, and rooted in misconceptions of gender roles and equality. So this example in this image is that wolves were creatures of the devil and always had a really bad image on the traditional on the oral tradition, and that had an effect, a negative effect on their preservation in the region. And associated with wolves, there were these creatures that were basically women that were not did not fit the mold of their time. They were rebel women or just different women, and they were associated with this curse. They would control the packs of the wolves and be associated with the devil. And this felt really unfair. So what we want with this project is bring these artists that have a strong female presence and fight for gender equality, rebrand these oral traditions and give these characters of the oral tradition a new revamped image with current values of respect for gender equality. So we want to talk about it, bring the subject to public eye. We associated with He for She, which is a United Nations association, and they helped us create this program with the local schools. So the artists will go there and their team will go there and talk about it with the students, and hopefully create this new cool image around these characters that is not so male-centered. So yeah, that's basically it. I hope that these examples help understanding how we work and how we try to do things. So in a wrap up, we think that tradition must be questioned and allowed to evolve through community participation, and that our cultural heritage is the key to our future, and as long as we're willing to learn from it. So that's it. I hope I didn't take too much time that was given, and thank you. If you have any questions, please write them or suggestions, and I'll be happy to answer in the end. Thank you.
Thank you very much for this presentation and all the projects, that different kind of projects that you are you are conducting. And now we will move once again to the Netherlands.
Okay, let's try again. Huh?
Mm-hmm.
You have to click share screen first.
Yes, I do, but the presentation is on my desktop, but not.
But is it like you minimized it? Maybe it's down there on the toolbar. Can you find it in the toolbar at the bottom of your desktop?
This is it. This is the presentation.
So go back to Zoom and then click share screen again. Share screen, and then it should be like a new menu popping up, and then you again click share screen.
No, it's not working.
Is there anyone there to help you?
No.
Perhaps.
So strange, huh?
Perhaps you can open your PowerPoint application and the last file should be your presentation.
Yes, I have a presentation on my screen here.
If you have your presentation on your screen, then you go back to Zoom. On the tray just down, click the mouse and you will see a green share screen tab.
Yeah, that's what I do.
And click on it.
So click on it and then click again.
But it doesn't show up. That's the problem.
Maybe your Dutch colleagues have your presentation, do they? So that they can share it and you can talk?
No, I sent it to him and then...
Marike or Hybrid, can you share Jan's screen?
I can send it to Hybrid. Okay. So
okay,
yep.
So maybe we could use this opportunity to open the discussion while you prepare the presentation. Malgorzata?
Yes, there were no so many questions in the chat box. But we received an information from Jesus Manuel Garcia, the director of UNED, the National and Distance University, who would like to participate in the discussion. So maybe I can give the floor to Jesus Manuel.
Okay, good morning. Yes, my name is Jesus Manuel and I am the director of the National Distance University in Orense City. And just I would like to give you 3 points, quick points, according to the use of, in this university, a methodology with 3 main characteristics. First, integrated design of conservation and subsequent use of resources. Second, business models for recovery of investment in conservation and use of quantitative indicators in governance as a guide for resource management. According to the integrated design, we link the conservation of heritage with the quality of cultural life of the communities, with the maintenance of population, and with the creation of economic opportunities. Therefore, the design of conservation actions is carried out inseparably linked to the subsequent use, establishing solutions that allow the carrying out of research, education, entrepreneurship, tourism, and environmental protection activities. According to the business models, we are inspired by the positive aspect of business management. We understand that investment must create profitable assets so that their subsequent use produce a return through their economic use by companies, public entities, and taxes generated. And finally, governance. Use of quantitative indicators in the management of heritage resource, number of visits, direct income generated, indirect income, jobs, cultural activity, etc. Creation of equity investment funds, they will act in a similar way to stock or real estate investment funds dedicated to creating equity assets and their use through concessions, rentals, operating licenses, etc. The investment recovery will allow new investment in new equity assets. Of course, to this must be added the promotion of their knowledge through a good policy of dissemination and therefore communication of cultural heritage, something fundamental, and we don't always see that it is fulfilled. Cultural assets are active, that is, a resource that has long been used over time. They are not expensive, but an investment. Thank you very much. From UNED, we are also committed to providing resources to generate entrepreneurship in a digital humanities laboratory to provide service with methodologies for the use of technologies. Thank you very much.
Mm-hmm. Thank you very much for participating also in this conference, and we hope we will keep in touch for the implementation of this project with you. Now we have a question from Melinda Harloff Sortan. Maybe Melinda, you can ask your question directly right now if you are here with us. If not, I can read your question from the chat box. Yes. Mm-hmm.
Okay. Hello, everyone, and thank you for being able to be here with you today. I would like to ask a question for our Portuguese colleagues. Thank you for their presentation. It was really interesting. And my question is, and my concern that by involving a strong female voice, like involving a lot of female concerts and participants you are planning to have in November, and you said that you would like to in a way overcome, if I understand well, the former mainly patriarchal style or character of the oral history. I'm wondering what is the technique through which you make sure that your intention is not to change the history, so students are not going to understood as if it was an equal participation of the both genders, but now it's your 21st century very positive idea to show the other side as well in a way.
So
thank you.
Yeah, thank you for. Can I answer? Is it okay that I
guess yes.
Okay, I was not sure that you were listening. So what we try to do with this is not to change the story, because the story is there, it's part of who we are and how we evolved as a community. So we're not trying to change that. What we want to do is take those stories and tell them, and hopefully generate a discussion of what the community think is wrong or right with that. Of course, that we have to force a little bit that these strong female artists that come and here and share this discussion with the community have arguments and have their own story to tell. So hopefully in the comparison, these old traditions that are deeply patriarchal will fall short, because we don't want to like erase these oral tradition stories. It's not what we're trying to do. What you're trying to do is tell them again and say, okay, is this wrong to you, or is this right? Why is this right, or why is this wrong? And how can we change it? How can we look at these characters? Because basically the Pieters, those characters that I was talking about, were just women that didn't fit the mold at their time, and that basically wanted to be different and not being mothers, not being taking care of their homes. So the community would associate them with this crazy curse that they would go out at night and control packs of wolves that were always associated with bad things. So basically what we try to do is to tell these stories again and see if this happened today, would it be a big problem? Like if a woman tries to be different and have a different way with their life, is this a big problem? And hopefully that these characters have an image, an updated image, but that is given by the community, not us. We're no one to tell the community what they think or not of this past and this traditional oral tradition. So it's just creating a discussion, you know, and crashing these female artists with this tradition, and hopefully we will see results from it. Or not. We are not here to control the direction of that outcome. We are just trying to promote the discussion.
Okay, thank you. I think the fact that you emphasize that through discussions you will ask what would you think today makes the point, which I was most probably mistaken, because many times at least there are some examples when with today's intention for a lot of people who has little knowledge about the history thinks that the new interpretation was in the past, but by emphasizing that what you think today about the past, it's a very good one. Thank you so much.
Yeah, so because the story is not retold, it's told the same way. But our context today is different than it was. So hopefully we can appreciate it differently. That's all.
Thank you for the clarification. Thank you.
Thank you for the question.
Thank you, Melinda, for posing this question. And now we can continue with the Netherlands. I hope you can already see the presentation.
Okay. You can hear me?
Yes.
Okay. Yes, I don't know what was wrong, but I restarted the computer. Maybe it would have worked now already. Okay. I cannot manage, I think, the different sheets now. Then I have to ask or not? If I want to go from one sheet to another?
You have to use the arrows or click on the screen.
Jan, ik klik hem door, want hij staat op mijn scherm. Ja?
Oké, dankjewel.
Steek maar een vinger op of zoiets, dan klik ik hem door.
Ja, ik zeg het wel, vraag het wel.
Is goed.
Ja. Oké. My name, Jan van der Meer. And I was asked by Hubert Krijns, whom you know from the city of 's-Hertogenbosch, to present our association with the for you difficult name of Kring Vrienden van 's-Hertogenbosch. It means the Circle of Friends of 's-Hertogenbosch. My function within the association is member of the board. In my portfolio of the association, I have general affairs and also all things around the guides of the camel routes, as well as education and training. I will introduce our association to you, and I shall explain some facts and figures using a few slides at the end of the presentation. For people that never were in Holland or visited the Netherlands, and especially 's-Hertogenbosch, the city of 's-Hertogenbosch, and you see it on the left side of the sheet, is located in the south of the Netherlands, and 's-Hertogenbosch is the capital of the province named Brabant, as you can see. Mag de volgende sheet staan. Next, okay. It's always good to show how our association is organized. The highest level in our association, as it is in every association, it is the general meeting of the members, and I assume it's also the case in your individual countries. Then we have the supervisory board, our governance, our business office, which speaks for itself, Bosse Kringen, our highly appreciated magazine. It comes out with a frequency of 6 times a year. We have education, we have training, and some cultural groups. And last but not least, the 3 main volunteer groups, the boat trips, the guided tours in the city, and what we call the Knowledge Center. The first two speak for itself. The Knowledge Center is in fact the original heritage group, and within that group we have different subgroups. It's important to understand that the members of the association determine the policy of our association. So in fact, it's the highest organ. At the left, you see some examples of the activities I just mentioned. An example of boat tours on top of it, and 2 examples of guided tours. Mag ik de volgende sheet? The relationship between the municipality and heritage. Our association was founded in 1973, so almost 50 years ago. And the relationship grew during years and was already there before 1973. This was in a period that after the Second World War, cities wanted to renovate and modernize. And as a result of that, there was a friction between keeping cultural heritage and modernizing the city. The municipality received contribution from political groups and citizens and were even forced by the government to prevent damage of cultural heritage. The city, and especially the inner city, was in a very, very poor condition, as you can see on the photos on the left. Money came available from the government, and as a result of that, the inner city could be renovated structurally. We are talking about the period end 20th century. Hardly imaginable to understand that the inner city of 's-Hertogenbosch had an open sewer system using the local river. We always think of countries like India for such examples, but as I tell you, this was even the case in our country only 50 years ago. The relationship between city and the kring grew in a positive way for cultural heritage. Important to mention that the development of the kring and the growth of the association was never subsidized. On the contrary, 25% of the income of the boat tours returns to the city, which is in a normal practice a few €100,000 per year. You can understand that this year will be structurally different because of Corona. And the money, the 25%, is being used for maintenance in the broad sense, but in most of the cases for renovating waterways within the city. Mag ik dan de volgende sheet? I already mentioned in general the activities of the kring. To be more explicit, we can mention city walking routes by our guides. For that also special maps are available. We have boat trips on the river called Benedize and Dommel. The St. Jan's Tower ascent, where St. John is the local cathedral. And the cathedral is one out of the 1,200 heritage places in the city. We have heritage conservation, especially within the heritage groups, safeguarding archaeological assets. We have a monument plaque every year, and it is issued by the kring. We have a library book collection heritage within our office building, and we share knowledge through training. We organize meetings that take place in the Kringhuis, but that's our home place. And during the introduction this morning, you were already informed about the beautiful and fully restored BULWARK that we hire from the municipality and that we exploit. On the sheet at the left side, you see examples of the activities. The cathedral, boat tours, guided tours, our magazine you see down, 6 times per year is issued. And of course we have our own website and we produce several booklets. Mag ik nog de volgende dia? And then what makes the kring so special? In the first place, we are talking about a very big association. We have 2,200 members, that's including 350 volunteers. I think it's one of the biggest heritage associations in the Netherlands. Next to the volunteers, we have only 3 permanent employees. And it's important to mention that our volunteers and board members are not being paid for their efforts. The kring provides its own training for guides as well as for skipper guides. And the training is very extensive. And to be more explicit, the training requirements are strict, with at the end an exam. Training is intensive and for guides lasts 2 to 3 years. For boating, it's a combination of theory and practice. There's also a boating license exam at the end. This is important for the safety of our guests because you must understand that boating also takes place on narrow waterways. We are very strict, so not every volunteer makes it to the finish line. High demands are made. We try to improve constantly, so training is at the moment separately for city guides and skipper guides, but more integration will take place in the nearby future. And as said, we have high training requirements, and at the end of the training and after the exams, we make real and signed agreements with the volunteers. Volunteers have to be available 2 days a week during the season. And then what is also special compared to a normal company, volunteers have taken up this all after their working life. This is because the training is not possible during the normal working conditions. The average age of the volunteers is therefore 70 plus, with all the consequences that fit this age. This is really a fact as we experience now during the corona problems. Our volunteers belong to the, what we call, most vulnerable group. So availability is a point we have to deal with at this moment. And to complete the overview of what makes the Kring so special, when you are in our city, you can recognize our volunteers because they wear recognizable Kring clothing, of course provided by the Kring. De volgende dia. I told you about numbers in relation to our association. Some more figures on this sheet. In normal years, so not this corona year, we see a lot of visitors in our city. For the boat tours, the season is in principle from April to November, and we can expect about 170,000 visitors, so quite a number. For the boat guests, we have more than 10 different tours available. For the city walks and object visiting, we see 10,000 of guests per year. In the figures on the sheet, you have examples of numbers of groups or individuals, but don't try to calculate exactly with these figures I show you. Overall, we guide more than 200,000 of guests per year, people from all over the world. This all means that we perform in numbers of guests quite well compared to other commercial guide companies in the city. For us, it's also a good sign that according to the information that we can extract from, for instance, TripAdvisor, we perform in general from very good to excellent. As said, this is not a normal year, with all the corona-related lockdowns and problems, but we count for this year only with about 10 to 15% of what we normally have. We are often asked about competition in relation to commercial guide companies. This question is then if we are not frustrating European procurement rules. But I can tell you that for the boat tours within the city, a European tender took place. We won the tender, but I have to admit that no other company was interested. This is because it's commercially not interesting for companies, which is a consequence of the commitment of our non-being paid volunteers for the tours. Mag de volgende dia. Ending this presentation, we can mention interesting developments that started already a few years ago. A few years ago, a worldwide initiative took place for founding a global network of water museums. Maybe you have heard of that initiative. The municipality and the Kring belonged to the so-called founding fathers of that initiative. And because of that, the water around 's-Hertogenbosch and its fortifications are a so-called open museum. This worldwide network is under auspices of UNESCO. Just look on internet with the words water museums. This initiative has become broader in the planning of a physical water and fortress museum in 's-Hertogenbosch. And this will be realized in a former gunpowder storage, of which you see some pictures on the sheet. The museum will open doors end 22 and will be a new experience for the Kring because we have to exploit a museum. That's quite new for us and really a challenge for us. In relation to that, we will also start the realization of the Bosse water collection. And especially for that, we started a water and landscape working group. So, like you see, we often say, never a dull moment, and we will continue to develop our association. Mag ik naar de laatste sheet? Now, this is what I wanted to tell you about the association, the kring, the circle, in relation with the municipality and the cultural heritage. And if you want more details or explanation, we are always available for you. You can contact us via Hubert Krijns or directly to the kring where you can ask for me. Thank you for your attention.
Thank you. Thank you very much for this inspiring example of volunteering and that for presenting your association. I think that all our countries can learn a lot from this example.
Yeah. Okay.
Before we continue with the discussion, we will move on and we will continue with the last presentation. Daniela, please.
Yes, thank you very much. So my presentation focuses on the challenges of cultural heritage in the COVID-19 times. We have touched on it in previous presentations, which I'm really glad. Obviously, this is the burden to cultural heritage as it is also for other sectors. So just to provide some statistics on COVID impacts, as far as it concerns cultural heritage, UNWTO statistics show that more than 80% of UNESCO World Heritage properties closed down. And I'll give you the example of Louvre, which is the most visited museum in the world with over 10 million visitors in 2019. After reopening at the beginning of July, it records a decrease in visitors by 80%. On the other side, as Dorothea already touched, we have seen actually a rise in some other cultural heritage sectors during the COVID times, such as a rise in streaming and online services. Therefore, digital consumption of music, films, television, and other art forms for entertainment, education, and cultural enrichment is definitely sought for. A few numbers, like in the UK, there was a huge boom in reading. So children's educational titles went up by 234%. And similarly, in the US, there was a 60% lift in sales of children's nonfiction books. Also, a substantial increase in gaming is seen, as well as TV and video streaming. And I will touch a little bit also on tourism, because heritage very much, in most cases, depends on tourism. So it all shifted into virtual travel opportunities, therefore augmented reality and other 4.0 technological developments increased. So on one side, we can see that heritage as a statical cultural sector, as per in-person visits, is definitely affected by the COVID-19, whereas cultural industries are on their rise. So it is logical, it's not something surprising, but maybe we should think in the direction how to use cultural and creative industries in matching them with cultural heritage. So definitely these are hard times for culture, and cultural sector worldwide experiences job losses. So how do we adapt to this new reality? So most governments responded with ad hoc measures, and they are good because they are necessarily to enable the survival of the sector. So the measures had to be brought very quickly, and they include a diverse range of measures, but mostly securing employment and ensuring job retention and maintaining infrastructures. So we do think about sustainability of heritage here by the maintenance of infrastructure and keeping the employers. Most governments responded with the so-called emergency rescue packages, so we can talk about liquidity measures here. Other mechanisms which are seen are relate to a strong push towards digitalization. So just we did a research on the usual response measures to the COVID-19 challenges. So just quickly, we can talk about liquidity measures. I will not go into every of them, but you can see that they mostly rely on exemption, reduction, or some kind of deferral of taxes. Compensation and bridging funds are put forward, or solidarity grants. There are special government loans to local governments for supporting cultural sector, or special credit lines or relief measures, stimulation fees. There is even redeployment, such as, for example, as film constructor workers are redeployed to build hospitals now. So actually, we all had to respond quickly. Acceleration of payments is one of the usual measures most governments provided for the cultural sector. The other types of measures can be categorized as social and program measures. So when it comes to social measures, most of countries responded with funds supporting cooperation projects between social and cultural sectors. And practically every global country, I mean globally, when we did the research globally, every country responded with extension of grant deadlines, therefore for the grants that have already been assigned. Then they adjusted the selection criteria for the national and international calls for proposals, or launching new calls, mainly focusing on the support of digital projects in arts and culture. Other categories of measures concerns restarting cultural life. And mostly they concern creation of interdisciplinary expert groups or coalition of artists for creating long-term strategies or to negotiate joint strategies with the government for relief measures. Also in some countries, cultural help desks or information desks were established to provide support and advice to the cultural sector. As far as it concerns epidemiologic measures, we are all very well acquainted with it, so I will not go into details. Beside government measures, there have been initiatives by the cultural sector. We have seen already today in this webinar some of good initiatives, as in the Polish case or the Portuguese case. So how did cultural sector respond? As for the economic initiatives, they mostly focused on the shorter working hours for the cultural institutions just to keep cultural workers employed, or they adjusted their activities, such as, for example, in theaters, costume makers started making face masks, or most of heritage assets focused on the activities linked to the maintenance and conservation. So not so much of management and visitors, but maintenance and conservation, and practically all of them shifted to the online sales. When it comes to ensuring liquidity, social media campaigns have been very well established practically everywhere, such as this one, No Refund, which encouraged people who bought tickets for cultural events not to ask for a refund. or there were online streaming supported activities supported by donations, and even digital databases were created to promote online sales of the local artistic, cultural, and design products. Some countries, in some countries, initiatives were brought public-private cooperation to attention, and some cooperation networks among cultural and heritage institutions with private sectors such as IT or tourism were created, or collaborative platforms to match private companies with artists. Most of us working in the cultural sector now focused on the skills enhancement initiatives. So practically there is no cultural heritage institution which provides no online trainings, mentorships, and workshops. And as I said, digital shift initiatives where cultural sector responded with online rehearsals, guided tours and performances, streaming, audience development initiatives, which we also heard about today and which are very, very important. I'm not going into epidemiologic initiatives because we all know about it. The Polish example already talked about a one-way system visits, therefore they had to rearrange it, but maybe another one replacing audio guides with alternative smartphone applications, and you will see that some cultural heritage assets promote self-guidance. So there are no interpreters in terms of personal interpretation, but we are self-guided by different digital devices. Or there were guided tours specifically organized for the elders because they are the most vulnerable part of the society. If we try to evaluate those measures, we have to say that cultural sector mostly relies on the public sector, and the money provided from the public sector is definitely indispensable in such times of critical situations. However, we have to say that this is only a short-term support to the sector, and the measures have the transitional nature, just to be in transition from the pre-COVID and hopefully to the post-COVID times. So if we would like to assess the impact of these measures, it's practically impossible at this moment. It's too early to say if these measures will have a lasting effect on the cultural sector, but we are about to estimate that the measures are really valuable, but still not ensuring sustainability. A number of cultural resources, and especially heritage, relied on tourism. So we also in IRMO did research on tourism-related measures. I'm not going to present them because they mostly rely on entrepreneurship in general, not only in tourism, although there are specific tourism measures, but I will present only some initiatives by the tourism sector which affect cultural heritage. So mostly measures introduced or initiatives relate to marketing activities, therefore recovery campaigns were put forward to promote especially domestic tourism. This is the new term, which you might have heard. It's called staycation, therefore promoting domestic tourists to stay actually, and to, if they travel, to travel nationally. Then development of integrated marketing platforms around a unique story or specific marketing campaigns for post-corona era. Initiatives related to restarting tourism mostly focus on health and safety standards, certifications and labels in tourism establishments. Therefore, those who can provide a label that they're totally in line with epidemiologic measures. Discounts on entrance fees are also put forward, and changes on restructuring of the destination offer. This may be very important because in most destinations there have been discussions that the destinations are not managed very well. So crisis as an opportunity brought changes to restructuring. Also in the tourism sector, we noticed digital shift, such as virtual visits to cities, museums, attractions, or sites. In some countries, also shopping tourism has been put forward through digital equipment, so that online platforms are put forward for the acquisition of products with cultural identity. So heritage has a lot to say in that. And of course, also a focus on skills enhancement. When we evaluate the measures put by the tourism sector, they are mainly aiming at restarting tourism, but we can say that they have been so far only partially successful, depending on the country and the destination. So usually destinations reachable by road have been partially successful. Just an example of Croatia, in July 2020, tourist arrivals accounted for 53% of arrivals in the same time last year, which is a good number. But now with the explosion of virus again, we cannot be happy with the numbers. Analysis of other measures are not available yet, unfortunately, and there is the uncertainty if this partial success of some measures is the result of actually the measures themselves or the tourist's itchy feet, because we all want to travel. We are stuffed with computers and staying at home. We want to travel, but now we are not sure if this is actually a psychological moment by the tourism market, or it's due to the measures introduced. Some innovative examples of coping with the situation can be divided in 3 categories. So one is changing the target market, target market and providing well-being. An example from Italy, Italian Association of Old Games is normally engaged in the safeguarding of traditional games and sports, and they organizes the Toccati Festival in the streets of Verona, where both community and tourists meet. So they provide some activities in terms of games and sports for tourists and locals. But responding to the corona pandemic, the association proposed to various Italian communities to adapt some traditional games to play at home, thus providing well-being for citizens and preserving and reviving authentic, intangible cultural heritage. Therefore, a potential impact on a new audience development is here the case. The second category would be changing the topic. So most heritage institutions, namely museums, such as, for example, Victoria and Albert Museum in London, introduced COVID-19 as the focus of their exhibition. So everyone today is focusing on what we have learned from Corona. We explored different pandemic objects and documenting solidarity among citizens through a series of online exhibitions. This is the project initiated by the House of the European History, and you might have probably seen this as the initiative in most museums, showing positive messages in different languages, again promoting well-being. So this is one of such examples. And the third category is changing the way of consumption and providing experiences. We already talked about the need for experiences in cultural heritage sector. An example from the Faroe Islands, where a virtual exploration of the islands through the eyes of the local was introduced. So it focuses on a new remote tourism tool. Therefore, you are actually a virtual visitor, and the local is equipped with a live video camera, and he acts as your eyes and body. So the visitor can control the moves of the local, so the different perspectives are offered, not only exploring locations on foot, but also taking a bird's eye view from a helicopter, for example, and this is what it looks like. So there was a total digital shift towards the so-called remote tourism. Another good example of innovative interpretation, whereas agile interpretation in the English Heritage Association provided new templates with QR codes and simple text such as watch, listen, etc., where the visitor himself or herself is actually guided by, self-guided by these QR codes. So if we try to do some kind of a summary, we can see that in tourism, but also in heritage, small-scale initiatives are preferred. Programs which rely on small number of visitors are also preferred. And of course, both heritage and tourism are sectors which normally provide well-being, but well-being is now definitely in focus. So some of the examples from Portugal, let's say Lule and Barcelos, which are destinations focusing on creative tourism. And when we talk about creative tourism, it means that heritage is all again in the focus. They use their local heritage in attracting small groups of tourists to do the workshops there, both promoting experiences, well-being, but also some economic return for the destination. Empordanet in Catalonia also targets the locals who spend their summer holidays. We see the trend of the staycation again, offering some ceramic courses. And Bio and Perpignan Méditerranée in France actually now, at the times of COVID, created new tourism programs focusing on creating tourism, and actually took advantage of it. So these are the examples of the clay working, and also in Empordanet and Bio in France. So the conclusion could be that the Corona heritage focuses on changing the market, changing the product, and changing the consumption. So soft tourism initiatives are preferred, such as creative tourism, maybe nature tourism. We heard today from Polish example, because they are the open air cultural heritage assets, they manage to maintain the number of tourists, so nature is always preferred. Experience is definitely something which puts your heritage into the focus, but some transition towards experience economy should be done in the cultural heritage sector. Of course, we are all focusing on the remote tourism, and as much as we do not earn a lot of money by that, we can say that there are some other benefits such as well-being, and of course it focuses on audience development. So these type of initiatives provide a greater resiliences. As far as it concerns changing the market, we will be focusing on the staycations, so measures to be introduced by decision makers could be a focus on staycations, therefore domestic tourism. As far as it concerns the product change, well-being is in the focus, and as far as it concerns consumption, we focus on de-seasoning, so to avoid the masses. So as much as we are talking about the new normal, this is definitely not new normal. And while we are all waiting for good old times to come, no real changes can occur. So creativity should be in focus. And as much as all those measures are not so innovative, I would say, but they provide, they're actually ad hoc measures, as I mentioned before. Maybe this is the opportunity to think of something really revolutionary, and I hope we will be able to do so. So thank you. With this, I believe we have finished with the presentations, and I'm giving the floor again to you, Malgorzata.
Thank you, Daniela, for this comprehensive presentation on the hot topic of COVID-19 impact and the practical examples. This was the last presentation during our webinar. I would like to thank the panelists for your presentations and for sharing your point of view. And now we can open the discussion part. We have a question in the chat box from Yanis from Pageo for Dorothea. And the question is, how would we manage to connect culture and war for the conflicts and for peaceful coexistence of different people and co-creation?
What a question. Thank you, Yanis. Okay, we have witnessed in the, this is my personal view, but if you even go to more distant historic periods, we learn a lot from there. For instance, the Renaissance paintings, and then the Dutch. The main thing that they depict is war. So, and there is somebody always triumphing, and those who are distracting the possessions, the lands, and they depict massacres. Most of what we today, let's say, admire in Florence and in Venice, it is war and destruction. So how much is the question, have we moved from there? Because the idea of culture, at least from our viewpoint today, not in the Middle Ages, not in the Renaissance, not even in the canon area, I mean, we have now non-equipped weapons to send to the enemies. The question is, how are we going to avoid the conflict, and how are we going to come together to a peaceful coexistence? So I would say that the European Union as a whole has a lot of defaults and has to be reshaped, reformed, go with evolution, restructure, and many things. But it's the most important peace project of Europe. I have this view very, very vivid in myself, because I am practically a historian all the time dealing with this kind of thing. So war and conflict is in every day. And as citizens of Europe, we have witnessed the development of the ISIS state, the destruction of many cultural heritage, the Buddha of Bamiyan, Palmyra, whatever happened in other Assyrian cultures, which are not going to come back. So cultural heritage is immovable and irreplaceable, and is subtle even to climate change, because the fabric of the monuments that we cherish today was not made for the exposure of CO2 and so on. So they're very fragile. The idea is to develop within the sustainability also the coexistence and the mutual respect for each other. And for this, we need also some red lines. I mean, how starts the respect, and when does it end? So we can, I think we can. I mean, Europe has been developed, is not even 80 years from 85 years from the Second World War, and Europe is the result of constant war since Greek times, since Roman times, mostly Roman times. The Greeks have colonized, so we have a duty to find a way for peaceful coexistence. Of course, the historian would say that. If you want the peace, prepare for war. I'm not suggesting it, not even as a as a rhetoric scheme. But there must be, this is exactly the role of culture as a development mediator and citizen education, because what we need to learn is how to create the critical citizen. We are in a fourth industrial revolution, having so many tools, and yet you see how many skills are lacking, how many countries have within the same union and even outside of the union, the situation is even worse. How many gaps exist, and within this advanced technology, we're not even able to manage basic questions like the climate change. We have the possibility to go to the moon, but we are not able, or we're not willing to care for the environment. If we don't have the environment, we don't have culture. If we don't survive, we are extinct, and so on. So culture and war used to go together in art, especially in the eras that preceded us, but now we don't have the possibility to let it happen again, because we will be destroyed. I don't know if it is clear enough, Yanis.
Thank you. I hope, Yanis, you are happy with the answer, and thank you, Dorothea, for making us reflect on culture in such a broad sense.
You're welcome.
Thank you. There were many great points during today's webinar, but I can see no more questions in the chat box. So I will give the voice to Daniela for a conclusions part.
Okay, so thank you again. I have to say, for me personally, this workshop has been inspiring. I hope it is also for the other participants. Most of them remained, even though we are over the time that we envisioned for the webinar. So I will just go quickly through what we have learned today from my own point of view. So from Spain, for example, we heard that there is a great importance of cultural industry and industry patterns in managing cultural heritage. While it may not always be easy, and it could not be transferred so easily always to the cultural heritage sector, since cultural heritage sector has also other values which are not in line with the industry. There is a necessity not only for structural renovation, but also for other activities to be included in the cultural heritage. Cultural heritage on one side may be a static phenomenon, but in case it is not so, it must be modernized. It must include cultural and creative industries, and experiences, as we already heard from the Portuguese examples, from the Greek example, I mean from Dorothea's example, but from the Greek speaker, from the Polish example, etc. So there is a difference in reasoning between public and private sectors, whereas economic importance of cultural heritage is not to be neglected. As much as Dorothea focused so much on values of cultural heritage, which are seen in the return on the investment in knowledge, in behavior, in identity and social cohesion, and this is not questionable, this is definitely the case. I would also say that economy, it still matters. Dorothea mentioned something, that visitors are not so important. I know that she didn't mean it that way, but she focused on how visitors can actually damage the heritage. Yes, they are. And this is why some measures, especially in the COVID times, have to be taken also in this line. So from Italy, we heard about an excellent example of protocol of mayors. Therefore, cooperation is put forward as one of the excellent tools to ensure a cultural heritage sustainability. Italian example not only put forward the protocol of mayors in terms of cooperation of different geographical areas, but also cooperation of cultural heritage with other sectors, such as agriculture and nature and entrepreneurship, etc., etc. Therefore, again, we are coming to the idea that cultural heritage is a very dynamic concept, and we have to think outside of the box. From Poland, I mentioned Poland many times today, but the Polish case showed the importance of animation, of different other events which are included on the cultural heritage sites. Again, cultural heritage industries such as fashion in their presentation, and the importance of stories. So stories and storytelling and narrative has been mentioned by various presenters today, not only the Polish ones, but the Greek representative, the Portuguese representative. Many of them focused on that. So experience is what we need, especially in COVID times. As I said, we are stuck in the digital environment and we need experiences. So nice lessons to be learned from the Portuguese case. As they say, as much as some heritage is local, it has global importance, especially the case now with the digital environment we are all stuck in. Locality doesn't have to remain local. We have actually a potential to grow global, because anyone can access this webinar, for example, from whichever part of the world. So this is our chance to stress the importance of every heritage. It doesn't have to be UNESCO site, as Dorothea nicely put it. It's not the designation on the UNESCO register, on the national register, which matters. It's the story we produce. Therefore, stories are those which can make, which can enhance sustainability of cultural heritage. A beautiful case from the Netherlands has again shown importance of cooperation, but cooperation in a different type. So they showed the example of participatory governance of cultural heritage, therefore volunteering as an excellent tool, not only to enhance cultural heritage sustainability, but also to provide well-being for 70+ citizens, which who today are well, people now having to retire. They're still not ready to retire. They want to contribute to the society. And a beautiful example of this voluntary association showed how they can be really effective in that. So participatory governance does not mean only public discussion about cultural heritage planning. So what should we do with this or that? And then we stop everything. So participatory governance actually means involving citizens in cultural heritage management. And you just have to believe in citizens and give them the possibility to do that. I would also add that some concrete methodologies in achieving cultural heritage sustainability, such as the cost-benefit analysis, which my colleague from IRMO presented, are definitely a useful tool for prioritization of projects. I think the Spanish presenter also mentioned as a challenge for decision makers how to decide which of the heritage projects is more important and where money should be invested. So cost-benefit analysis is one of the useful tools which can actually prioritize the projects. It's not based on someone's opinion, but concrete numbers and scenarios are put on the paper, and we can see if the money to be invested in a certain project is to be justified. And in the end, I tried to make kind of a summary of the measures taken by countries in related to COVID-19 challenges for heritage. And not to repeat myself, I believe you will bring this message home, that new measures focusing on different target markets, different products, and different types of consumptions should be taken into account when planning cultural heritage projects and when trying to ensure their sustainability through public policy instruments. I sincerely hope that this was useful for all the participants who showed their interest in this webinar, but also to the Keep On project partners, whose next step is actually to introduce concrete measures into their policy instruments. And I believe that this international environment which we have today and differences in measures, diversity of measures, will be inspiring for you, and that you will be productive also in the next phase of our projects. To all the participants, I would again like to thank for your patience. We had some technical problems, but this is our new normal. We have to get accustomed to it, and I hope it didn't ruin the impressions you will bring home from this webinar. So this is from my side. Thank you very much. Malgorzata, back to you if you would like to say something.
Thank you very much. I would like to thank all our participants, our panelists, and I hope to see you in other next events as well.
I would just like to add the technical information. There was someone asking if the presentations will be available after the webinar. So my answer was, if anyone is interested in a specific presentation, please write me an email. It's daniela@irmo.hr, asking for a specific presentation. I cannot share people's presentations. I don't even have all of them, but we should ask the presenters, because I believe they have royalties on these presentations. And if they are willing to share, we will gladly send you the presentations you're asking for. Thanks again. Bye, everyone.
Thank you.